have more than 80,000 participants attending this event from more than 90 countries. Can we use gross national happiness instead of GDP in least developed countries, as it includes ethical values and good governance? The question is in reference to the rampant increase in corruption in some LDC and developing countries like India, Brazil, and Bangladesh.
Yeah, GDP definitely is not the measure of happiness.
All at J.M. Smith that we were supposed to be a good supplier to our customers, be a good customer to our suppliers, be a good employer to our employees, be a good citizen of our community. This conference and in everything that the Jan Center and its associates are doing.
Your knowledge is your wealth. Your intelligence is your wealth. Your personality is your wealth. That is your dollar. I started with $1 in my pocket, school dropout, 8th standard, but I am here in front of you with 1 lakh students, with campuses across the country, 1 million students. And before I started in education, I already created 3,500 entrepreneurs.
Leading from behind is also the best position to develop future leaders. From here, one can see who is most effective at handling obstacles and also influencing the rest of the team for better and worse. While building a compelling case for gender diversity, advancing women leadership in the workplace should consider all these dimensions. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be invited at the International Research Summit AVLOKAN. The literal meaning of AVLOKAN is the art of self-realization.
If you complete this cycle, it becomes a very sustainable model, wherein there is no shortage of resources for conducting further research if you make it applied. And I must reiterate that I do not undermine the importance of fundamental research or purely academic research. This needs to be kept in mind as far as research as an activity is concerned for academic institutions. Now, in such a place, students, particularly you all, I don't have enough words to thank you for what you have put out. I think all attention of the university is keeping you all in mind, and you will be the ultimate beneficiary of whatever you are trying to do.
Thing is to redesign the banking system so that they are devoted to do the work of the whole bank, not just tiny window in the conventional banks.
A bank in Bangalore is doing very well for the poor, and it's doing very well in
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
It's at 6,000 crore level they have reached, Grameen. It's all your Professor Mohammed Yunus. And they have been effectively doing it for the poor, and poor is becoming better and better. Even if a vegetable vendor is there, he's able to earn 5 lakh rupees a year and pay his fees for his children. So your philosophy is working across the world.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that.
So the next decade is about 7 Ds. Disease is not going away so easily. So I cannot predict what will happen, but yes, I do see it is causing the digital divide between rich and poor. But at the same time, you see, with respect to my previous answer as well, that these technologies are making field level for every.
Skills and network. So skills plus network is success. Only success in networking is not in finding the right person, but in becoming the right person. True value of networking lies in helping others. Now,
regarding introverts and the connect with networking, I just wanted to say that a lot of people who are actually introverts and they feel hesitant regarding networking. They feel like that it is not for me. But I think your talk has definitely motivated them, and I think now they can go ahead with it.
Our weaknesses represent our greatest opportunities for development. Plant many seeds, and not all of them actually grow up to be a fully nurtured plant. Some of them do, right? So you expose them to many things, and you take a step back and you start seeing where they're flourishing and kind of build a theme around it, right? There's a theme around like a pool of talents which are around that theme. Start identifying and observing that theme. And as parent and as role models, just nurture, just provide the nurturing, giving them that opportunities, and they will thrive. They'll just do what best they can do.
For all the people who are yet to start their corporate jobs, who are yet to start their entrepreneurship journey, my dear friend, this is going to happen with you also. Unless and until you understand that the funnel that needs to be inverted. Okay, so in today's dynamic market, in today's global market, it all begins with networking and building the relationship.
So the bad comes with the good, as I pointed out in so many of the examples.
How do we differentiate ethical, moral, and legal behaviors in our course of achieving our life goals? Don't the three behaviors overlap and create confusion in the process of achieving our goals of life?
The severity of the bad, number one, and ease of implementation, the other thing. Now,
I want to share the idea that this is the way we respect other people. We don't do it by holding their hands in an age of COVID. We do it by the Asian way, actually, of acknowledging their presence and their importance and their dignity. So I thank all of you for sharing your thoughts.
Thanks.
What light means to the darkness, that is what Dr. Kotler means to the creator in me.
Dr. Philip Kotler to me is the inventor, creator, and preserver of contemporary marketing.
For me, Dr. Kotler is a university in himself.
A benevolent teacher who has bestowed the world with the invaluable treasure called marketing.
Dr. Philip Kotler means he provides values and solutions to the world of marketing. Thank you very much. Thank you very much.
Dr. Kotler, your presence is an enlightening learning journey, not just for us, but for the thousands of people watching us live across the globe.
I send my best wishes to Jane and your university and all of India. Thank you.
We have more than 80,000 participants attending this event from more than 90 countries. Can we use gross national happiness instead of GDP in least developed countries, as it includes ethical values and good governance? The question is in reference to the rampant increase in corruption in some LDC and developing countries like India, Brazil, and Bangladesh.
Yeah, it's GDP definitely is not the measure of happiness.
All at J.M. Smith that we were supposed to be a good supplier to our customers, be a good customer to our suppliers, be a good employer to our employees, be a good citizen of our community. This conference and in everything that the Jan Center and its associates are doing.
So your knowledge is your wealth. Your intelligence is your wealth. Your personality is your wealth. That is your dollar. I started with $1 in my pocket, school dropout, 8th standard, but I am here in front of you with 1 lakh students, with campuses across the country, 1 million students. Before I started in education, I already created 3,500 entrepreneurs.
Leading from behind is also the best position to develop future leaders. From here, one can see who is most effective at handling obstacles and also influencing the rest of the team for better and worse. While building a compelling case for gender diversity, advancing women leadership in the workplace should consider all these dimensions. It is indeed an honor and a privilege to be invited at the International Research Summit AVLOKAN. The literal meaning of AVLOKAN is the art of self-realization.
If you complete this cycle, it becomes a very sustainable model wherein there is no shortage of resources for conducting further research if you make it applied. And I must reiterate that I do not undermine the importance of fundamental research or purely academic research. This needs to be kept in mind as far as research as an activity is concerned for academic institutions. Now, being such a patient students, particularly you all, I don't have enough words to thank you for what you have put out. I think all attention of the university is keeping you all in mind, and you will be the ultimate beneficiary of whatever you are trying to do.
Thing is to redesign the banking system so that they are devoted to do the work of the whole bank, not just tiny window in the conventional banks.
The bank in Bangalore is doing very well bank for the poor, and it's doing very well in
Thank you. Thank you. I'm glad to hear that.
It's at 6,000 crore level they have reached, Grameen. It's all your Professor Mohammed Yunis. And they have been effectively doing it for the poor, and poor is becoming better and better. Even if a vegetable vendor is there, he's able to earn 5 lakh rupees a year and pay his fees for his children. So your philosophy is working across the world.
Thank you so much. I'm glad to hear that.
So the next decade is about 7 Ds. Disease is not going away so easily. So I cannot predict what will happen, but yes, I do see it is causing the digital divide between rich and poor. But at the same time, you see, with respect to my previous answer as well, that these technologies are making field level for every.
Skills and network. So skills plus network is success. Only success in networking is not in finding the right person, but in becoming the right person. True value of networking lies in helping others. Now,
regarding introverts and the connect with networking, I just wanted to say that a lot of people who are actually introverts and they feel hesitant regarding networking. They feel like that it is not for me. But I think your talk has definitely motivated them, and I think now they can go ahead with it.
Our weaknesses represent our greatest opportunities for development. Plant many seeds, and not all of them actually grow up to be a fully nurtured plant. Some of them do, right? So you expose them to many things, and you take a step back and you start seeing where they're flourishing, and kind of build a theme around it, right? There's a theme around like a pool of talents which are around that theme. Start identifying and observing that theme, and as parent and as role models, just nurture, just provide the nurturing, giving them that opportunity.
Dear participants, a very good evening. Welcome to our 9-day International Entrepreneurship Summit, the most awaited event of the year 2022. AVLOKAN 2.0, requesting all participants connected with us in this journey through Facebook Live and Zoom platform to stay tuned with us. We are going to begin in the next few minutes. Thank you very much. Dear participants, welcome to our 9-day International Entrepreneurship Summit, the most awaited event of the year 2022, AVLOKAN 2.0. Requesting all participants connected with us in this journey through Facebook Live and Zoom platform to stay tuned with us. We are going to begin in the next few minutes. Thank you. I once again welcome all of you to our 9-day International Entrepreneurship Summit, the most awaited event of the year 2022, AVLOKAN 2.0. I'm requesting all participants connected with us in this journey through Facebook Live and Zoom platform to stay tuned with us. We are going to begin very shortly. A very good evening, participants, delegates, speakers, and dignitaries. Welcome to our 9 days International Entrepreneurship Summit, AVLOKAN 2.0, on Beyond Sustainability, Trends in Regenerative, Socially Responsible Community Ventures, organized by Vidyanidhi Student Research and Development Cell, in association with Gyanidhi Faculty Research Cell of Center for Management Studies, Jain deemed to be university. Dear participants, we began with the sessions yesterday with your immense support and presence with a desire to continue this journey for upcoming days with the same spirit. Thank you once again to all of you for joining in and making the summit fruitful. On this note, I would like to invite our President, Alumni Association, Ms. Saida Shifa, to take over.
Thank you, Dr. Abhishek. Jain deemed to be university is an entrepreneurial hub that facilitates a dynamic environment conducive to the development of new enterprises. Through its angel investing firm, Jain Ventures, Jain Group has incubated 50 innovative ventures in areas spanning technology, hospitality, retail, financial services, and real estate. Jain Ventures is a business incubation company with an aim to inspire, empower young people to become social entrepreneurs. By building an entrepreneurial environment for young people, Jain Group inspires, trains, and coaches entrepreneurs and assists them in training innovative ideas and visions into reality, thereby building sustainable communities. As we believe that young people in India have the passion and potential to succeed as entrepreneurs, all they need is encouragement and the right support to turn their ideas into successful business prospects. Today, we have with us our distinguished alumni. Let me take a moment and introduce them to our audience. We have with us Mr. Jia Jain. He did his schooling in a small town of Assam. Life was easy, go happy until Bangalore calling happened, and he found himself amidst the rat race to pursue his BCom from Jain College and went on to do his MBA from Maths, again, an institute of Jain Group. Fresh out of college, he started his own company called Insignia Hospitality Private Limited, under which he created a vegetarian dining revolution in Bangalore. 1947 was born, which is the first vegetarian fine dining restaurant in South Bangalore. He quotes, "Dreams are extremely important. You can't do it unless you imagine it." And then there was no looking back. Having successfully implemented a chain of vegetarian fine dining restaurants in Jayanagar, Banshankari, Raja Rajeshwari Nagar, west of Cord Road, and Hubli. Like being said, all work and no play makes Jia a dull boy. His passions are traveling, cricket, watching television, and loves reading books. Next up, we have Mr. Abdul G. Seth. He leads by example, dynamic and achievement-oriented. Abdul G. Seth kickstarted his first entrepreneurial initiative, a risk and wealth management company, Basket Options Private Limited, during his second year MBA in 2004. A serial entrepreneur since then, he has his credit over 20 plus successful ventures, each speeding towards category leadership position in their respective domains. A strategist with a great positive outlook, his strength lies in getting together the best team, ideation, and mentoring aspiring entrepreneurs. With his go-getter drive, he creates a contagious work ethos that is upbeat, bullish, and goal-driven. Highly respected in industry circles for his innovative initiatives, business acumen, and trailblazing success, Mr. Abdul prefers to attribute his achievements to his fundamental belief, success against all odds is real success. An outstanding orator, he has been a distinguished speaker in top B schools of India, inspiring all those he meets. Mr. Abdul is also an active member of networking forums like TIE, NHRD, BNI, and prides himself in representing India as a cultural ambassador to Canada as a part of Rotary's Club Cultural Exchange Program. I'm pleased to have you both here on the panel, sir.
Thank you.
Now, without further any delay, we will begin with today's discussion on the incubation of Jain deemed to be university with our esteemed alumni, Mr. Jia Jain and Abdul G. Seth. The reason for this discussion is to learn from the experiences of our two distinguished alumni and also to understand the process of incubation and motivating the budding entrepreneurs. Sir, can you please brief our audience about how you started your entrepreneurial journey?
Jia, go ahead. Thank you, Dinesh sir, for giving us an opportunity to speak about to be on this forum. Thank you, Shifa.
Thank you.
So my journey started somewhere in the third semester of MBA. It was in 2004. November, we were doing our placements for the college. And then suddenly everyone's placement was over and I was the only one left one. So I went to the dean and I asked him, so what about my placements? And the dean told me, nothing, you have to go and meet chairman. And that's where my entrepreneurship journey started. And sir, just in 2 lines, he just told me, no job, you have to start a business. And I said, sir, then what about the risk involved in the business? He said, all profits are yours and all losses are mine. So just go ahead and do business. In next 7 days, I want a business plan on my table. So that's it. There's no looking back, and my journey started from there, from that day itself.
Nice. What happened in my case was that during the third semester MBA, we were sitting in one of the entrepreneurship sessions, and Chandra sir had come to our class, and he was talking about saying that we've just opened for incubation. If anybody is interested, you can approach us and we'll start. So I thought maybe he's just talking about it. So next day morning, I was there at his Vipuram campus. He heard my idea in the corridor for 1 minute. He said, "Okay, let's go ahead and incubate it." So I thought maybe he's just joking. Next day, when I came to college, the dean gave me a place in the campus. And they said, "This is your office, henceforth, in the first floor of the campus." And within a matter of 4 days, I got a check of 10 lakh rupees saying that, "Listen, just start. We have already told you that we have incubated your company." And that's how the journey started for me with Jane.
That's really nice to hear the journey, sir.
Somewhere that was also for us also to become an entrepreneur, because we found it very fancy. So our friend Abdul Suveer's classmate, and I could see him sitting in the corridor in his personal office with full suit, boot, and I like, this is so fancy. Why not? That's also, some attribution I can give that why I also got motivated to start my company. It was fun.
So what were the challenges you had to overcome at the beginning of your journey?
See, there's no challenge. There's always opportunity. But yes, if you say like that, financial challenges were always there. So I started my restaurant project and my budget overshooted. And I had to go back to chairman to ask, sir, my budget had overshooted 3 times. He's like, what is this plan? Where have you done your MBA from? I said, yes, Jane only. So I had to work back. I had to sit back in the library and prepare all the cash flow statements, sit with the auditor to know the financial flow, to give bank all the documents. So financial challenge was there. And then finally we got a loan from the bank, and there 1947 started. And the second biggest challenge was human resource again, getting the right people. So that was, that took us time. And third was operational challenge. So I'll just share a small story. So before the start of the restaurant, so me and Abdul happened to go to Mumbai to check with consultant. There are restaurant consultants, and we thought we'll meet one of the consultants so that we get a fair idea as to how we start this restaurant. Because this was a completely new ball for me. A person who doesn't know how to make a tea is going to start a restaurant. So that was the story for me. And me and Abdul happened to travel to Mumbai, and the consultant scared us to the hell. He gave me 1,000 impossibilities to start a restaurant, problems to start a restaurant, rather than giving me one good solution or one good positive vibe that you have to start. And then and there I decided I'm not attending this meeting. I sat there 2 hours only because of Abdul, and we just came out and I said, I'm not starting a restaurant. I'm calling up chairman and telling that I'm dropping this idea. Jo hoga hoga, I'm dropping this idea. He said, nothing doing. Let's eat pizza, Domino's mein pizza khate, yeah, relax. There will be other restaurants. So that was the biggest fear created by him. The operational challenge was such a big fear. But then when we came to Bangalore, we met other restaurateurs and we found that it's not that tough. It's easy. It's not that tough. So flow happens, things happen. There are people to help you out. And I think that challenge we overcame when we met other industry people around, So sometimes you just don't listen to one person. My opinion is that you need to meet few more people in the industry to know about this industry. So that was the biggest challenge for me.
Abdul, sir, what would be your views on it, sir?
So I had started a wealth management company. I mean, today's era is different. That time era, I'm talking about 2005. Wealth management was very different. It was all big wigs game. It is not any startup cannot do it. And anyways, we look pretty young, and that time we're looking even more young. The biggest challenge was, I used to carry my laptop and say that, listen, I'm managing your wealth. I'm going to manage your wealth. People used to laugh, saying that, how can you manage your wealth? That is one important thing. But two, what used to happen is morning 9:30 stock market used to start. I used to finish by 3:30, and 4:30 commodities market used to start, go until night 12 o'clock. You see, the biggest learning also, as well as a challenge it was, is that we should become expert in something. We should do our homework well. We should do good research. I ended up burning a couple of crores in stock markets and commodities without even understanding the market, just to experiment it, just to learn. But I don't see today's generation doing it because they're very clear in terms of the research, in terms of the thought process. But in our case, that time it was very new. Entrepreneurship was very, very new at that time. I think hardly 3 of us in our entire batch that time actually understood entrepreneurship, or rather who opted for entrepreneurship. So that time era was very different. It was like, if you compare that era and this era, it was about belief system. That time it was like, we'll require 20 years to become successful. Now it is like, we'll take 3 years to become a unicorn. That time it was about profit. Today it is about growth. So the thought process is very different. So challenges were very different. They were very simple. If I tell you today's, what challenges we faced that time, you might even laugh, saying that, are there challenges? Because that time ecosystem was not evolved. The entire country's ecosystem was not involved. Only Jane had that ecosystem and culture about entrepreneurship. But whereas in the outside world, we're like youngsters trying to figure out, try to help them out. The look, what the people used to give it to us was that, Asha, you guys are youngsters, you're trying something, we'll try to help you out. But it's not the case today. So these are very different challenges what we faced that time. Shipa.
I think after listening to such inspiring journey of both of you all, we're now intrigued to understand what inspired you to develop your idea.
Go ahead, Mr. Abdul.
Yeah, so mine was from 1998. I'm talking about a pretty long time back. I was into stock markets. So from the age of 16, I have not taken pocket money from my dad. I used to make money in stock markets and earn out of it. And when I came to MBA, one of my friends had done a project in stock market, which I read through, and I said that, okay, this seems interesting. And incidentally, same time, Chandra said, announced saying that, listen, we're open for incubation. So nothing like inspired. As I told you, we are from a different era altogether. If I tell you guys that, no, we didn't know what we wanted to do in life, but we just wanted to be an entrepreneurs, be our own bosses. That's how it was. So, it just got a kick, and, and we approached Mr. Jain and we started off the company. So it was as simple as that.
Jia, so we would like to listen to your views on it.
Yeah. So mine, what happened was, we had an alumni meet of our, we passed out and we had an alumni meet of our MBA batch in Goa. And that's where Chairman Sir had come. And I was just sitting with him, and there in the process of discussion, he just mentioned, Jia, 3 things chale gaya. And I remember it was 2005 that there was recession. There was recession and world over. And he just told me 3 things will never die, Jia, whether there is recession or not. And I said, so what 3 industry you don't think will die? Health, education, and food, he told me. And that's where the idea of food came into my mind. I said, education, you are already into it, sir. Healthcare is too complicated. Let's start something with food. And that's where I tried my hand on food. And I came back, we just came back from Goa, and there was no looking back. We started looking for options as to what we can start in food. And that's where the vegetarian fine dining restaurant concept came in my mind, that we have to start.
So we have a couple of questions from our audience. What is unique about your business?
See, people have tried and experimented or changed food to next level. And I believe in being in the same, traditional Indian food. I have still kept my basics intact. Let us give good quality food, give that Indian touch, and not experiment too much with food. Today, if you see, food has been experimented left, right, and center. But we have kept it very simple, very traditional, and very Indian. And I believe that is what is going to run in the long run. That I think that is our USP, what we have kept.
And definitely 1947's rabdi and ice cream is this uniqueness, I think. Yeah. So I think in our case, we are a seed fund house. So we are more into insurtech, edtech, and fintech. It's the approach which you take. For example, ultimately, you're selling insurance only, you're selling education only, you're you're promoting financial services products, but it's the approach of how you use technology. It's how you reach out to the customers. But the uniqueness in what we have kept is, in today's world of technology, we feel that it's tech and touch which plays a game. So relationship goes a long way. All said and done, ultimately, you need a human touch. So with technology, we want to give human touch, and which is what we have been doing. So all our thousands of customers whom we have, they know us well, we know them well, which is very difficult in today's world when you have, let's say, 40, 50,000 customers. You won't know them. But here in our case, it's more very different. The teams know them, they know us. It's more of a human touch as well as the technology which we use. So that's the uniqueness in what we do.
What were the different kind of strategies you first used to market your business?
So as I said, I believed in keeping it simple. So I have always kept it very simple. I believe that nothing can beat your word of mouth. For a restaurant, for our industry, I think word of mouth is what plays in. If a customer has come and, he has experienced your food, your hospitality, I don't think you need to market it more. He's your brand ambassador. And that's how from 1 to 100, 100 to 1,000 and 1,000 to lakhs, it happened, So my customers became my brand ambassador. So it was purely word of mouth, and that's the only strategy we followed when it came to marketing.
Yeah. So I feel when you start an entrepreneurship journey, whether now or whenever you started it, there's a lot of drama around it. So we always look back and say, call it as a strategy. But then that time, whatever was feasible, whatever was with our reachable resources, we used that. And we kind of reached out to our friends, family, circle, whatever nautanki we had to do, whatever drama we have to do around it, in order to get the attention of our customers, we did it. Of course, we call it as a strategy when you look back now, but there was no specific strategy as such, because as I told you, we were from a different era altogether. That time you didn't have Facebooks to reach out, you didn't have Insta to reach out. It was all offline. It all has to be, like Gia said, word of mouth. So that's how we went about it.
But today, yes, today social media plays an important role, and you have to be there, and you need to considerably invest your time, money, and energy on social media, because that's what youngsters are. That's where the market is, and you have to be there. You have to promote your product there today.
We're talking about close to 72 crore population in India having internet access. More than 80 crore population having smartphones. So where else will you get access to the population? It's the screen which you have all the access to all the people in the world. And on LinkedIn, you can get in touch with anybody. This morning, I got in touch with the world's best investors. It's on a click of a button.
Yes.
I think it's playing a great role now.
And it's as simple, jo dikhta hai wo bikta hai. So what shows you sell. So a picture will drive you to my restaurant, A good food picture will drive you to my restaurant. That is the game today.
But having said that, like Gia mentioned, the basics have to be good. The food has to be good. My service has to be good. Insurance products, wealth management advice has to be good. That doesn't change irrespective of the era, because the basics have to be intact.
How do you define success?
For me, success is happiness. And how many lives we have made difference, that is success for me. Today, I consider my 1947 as a family, and any member prospering out of 1947 gives me that happiness, And for me, that is success. How many lives we have been able to change? How many people around us we have been able to influence in some or other way, in a positive way? Or maybe how many entrepreneurs seeing us have developed, So for me, that is success.
I think for me, success is freedom. Freedom to do what we believe, freedom to get up and go wherever you want tomorrow morning, freedom to take a decision, freedom to impact, freedom to do whatever you want. I think as an individual, that's success. As an organization, like Gia said, it's the happy customers, which is success. But as an individual, I feel it's freedom to do whatever you want. Because today, what has happened is that everything is guided by either people or the neighbor or your family saying that this you should not do, this you should do, etc., etc. But I think in this world, entrepreneurship is empowerment. It is to do what you want to do, what you believe in doing it. And there's no right and wrong in this game. So that's success for me.
Right. Thank you, sir. So what have you enjoyed the most about starting your own company?
Jay, go ahead.
It's fun, it's fun. it's an adventure. It's an everyday adventure. So you won't believe, when I started, I used to take Xerox, I used to go to the Xerox shop and do myself Xerox. That's the fun. So from a job of a peon to a job of a CEO, I've experienced it all. Wherein I'll get so much experience? Which job will give me such a diversified experience? So I was happy talking to my housekeeping boy to the, best of managers or best of owners in the industry. So wherein you get that wide range of exposure to meet people. So that was, for me, it's fun. It's an adventure. It's meeting new people. It's every day giving you a kick, that okay, let's do something new.
Yeah, I think it's a roller coaster ride. It's like no 1 hour is the same. Last hour it can be different. This hour is different. The next hour is going to be different. So the anxiousness, the way you control your mind, and the way you control the entire things which are going around, though anything can happen. Case in point being, one of these days during just pre-COVID, one of them just walked into my office. One of the officers from GST just walked into my office, and I think one of the months one of my team members was not there, so he had forgotten to file it. So he just walked in and he said that, listen, I'm going to put this case on you, etc., 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 and whatnot. He went on doing it. And how you tackle that situation and actually bring about empathy in that gentleman for you and your organization. I mean, it's a different thing altogether. Every day, like Gia mentioned, is a different, beautiful situation. I mean, it's a beautiful day. If you take it in a nice version, if you're not calm, and if you're not sure as to what's happening, and if you get frustrated or you resent it, then you're finished. You can't be an entrepreneur. You have to develop a lot of calmness. So I think that's the fun about entrepreneurship. You have to be calm. There is no other choice. You have to take it by the stride. Yeah.
And your real personality comes out, in dealing with every situation, because every situation is so different. Your real personality comes out, and that shows how you can handle situations at very ease without taking stress, and also thinking about the growth. There are challenges, there are problems, but still you are on it and you are handling it. So it's fun, it's thrill, it's adventure. So everyone should try. I feel everyone must try entrepreneurship in their own lifetime. Otherwise, they're gonna miss something in life.
Yeah, and it's also a thin balance between today and tomorrow, what you want to do. It also is a thin balance between what you believe and what you want to do in life, what you achieve. See, I also feel that today, I mean, a lot of us have got inherited wealth. So a lot of new generation will have inherited wealth. That means more the opportunity to experiment and fail young, nothing wrong. And there's no entrepreneur who can say that he's only succeeded. It's not possible. Even Jeff Bezos was recently saying in an interview that I would have failed millions of times. I mean, of course, it's a metaphor, but he has failed so many times. But the only time he succeeded was Amazon. So it happens, that's how it is. So it's a roller coaster ride. If you like it, you'll enjoy it. So that's how it is.
We have a question from a participant. The management is not supposed to extend funds. What will be the alternative to mobilize funds to start our business? Also, kindly suggest some funding agencies.
See, if you have an idea, funds come in. Funds has never been a challenge. If I believe that if your intentions are right, and if your idea is right, and you have a solid idea, there are millions of people to fund you. Whether you take angel investors, or whether you take VCs, or whether you take your friends, colleagues. If your idea is solid and dum hai, and your intentions are very right, I don't think funding is a challenge. It's just a myth. People don't try and they just give reasons ki I don't have funding. It's not. You have to be in the process. No, pehle jump to karo. You first jump, no.
So
jumping, you have notions. So you have to jump, and funding is not at all a problem today. Today banks have schemes. Today angel investors are there, VCs are there. So many institutions are there to fund your idea. It's just your idea. It cannot be just an ordinary idea. Your idea matters initially.
Yeah. So I think gone are the days of saying that, listen, reach out only to family and friends. Just today morning, I was doing some research. In the world, there's some 60,000 VC firms, and one, like Gia said, maybe 100,000, 200,000 other angel investors, etc. And incidentally, I was reading about Kunal Shah. He says on a WhatsApp, he funds you. So I think this is the era of social media. I mean, you don't even have to think about where the money will come from. You just have to reach out. Like he rightly said, Gia, you just have to reach out. In fact, the biggest regret of my life, which I feel bad, is that I never reached out earlier, because we are from a different ecosystem that time. You just need to reach out. It doesn't matter, good, bad, ugly idea doesn't matter, because the moment you reach out, that gentleman will give you a feedback, and that feedback will help you improve your product. So the entire thing is about assumptions. I think first you keep all your assumptions at home. Don't bother about it. Just reach out, just talk it out, talk to your friends, talk to your circle. And social media is fantastic here. I mean, you can reach out to anybody. I think take Kunal Shah's number. In fact, I'm going to do tomorrow for one of my ventures. And WhatsApp him. I think he's funded almost 200 companies on WhatsApp. So you may be the 201. You never know.
And you will get connected automatically. The moment you think about an idea, you are pitching it, you will be connected. Social media or your friends, or there are platforms, there are entrepreneurship platforms, VC platforms, there are funding platforms wherein you can participate. There are TV shows like Shark Tank and all.
Absolutely.
You know, innumerable opportunities are there. You have to connect. You should have an idea. The problem is you don't have an idea and start shouting that I didn't get funding. Well, idea to law.
There's a government funding. Elevate is there. Elevate is going on. I mean, it got closed recently. So
today I was reading in the newspaper, Karnataka government has spent almost 1,000 crores on entrepreneurship. You know.
Yeah.
So someone has been benefited from that.
No, absolutely, absolutely.
So we have a question from another participant. What advice would you like to give to the new age business students? And what do you think about the growing startups in India?
New age students should just go all out and do, try their hands on entrepreneurship. Don't think back, do your research, put your numbers right. You need to put your numbers on your Excel and go all out and do it without even thinking. Even if you do mistakes, it's fine. Those are your opportunities. Convert your mistakes into opportunities. And today technology is there to help you, to guide you. So it's easy even more to do it, but give a try. You have to try and get that mindset, that yes, failures will be there, but I have to get in where I want to get in, and fix your short-term goals, okay, this is the time I'm giving for entrepreneurship, but you have to jump in.
Yeah. So I advise each student or each student of entrepreneur, it can be a student or it can be anybody, is first understand your strengths. It's very, very important. Second, don't get carried away by economic times and CNBC and money control, saying that so many people got funded and we have not. For every person who's got funded, there are thousands of companies have not got funded, thousands of entrepreneurs have not got funded. Three, keep your aims realistic. Fourth is the idea. See, idea is formed only from a pain point. So if you don't know the market, if you don't know the demography of the country, if you don't know the demography of your city, if you don't know the culture of the city, if you don't know what is the pain point the audience is encountering, how will you even come out with an idea? So it's very important to go to basics, get your basics right first before even jumping. And then, like rightly said by Jia, then you jump in. You should jump in. There is no two ways about it. Give yourself a time frame that, no, this is an experiment I'm going to do. And you can be frugal. You don't have to pump in huge money to do it. One of the Kyle, the sister of this Kim. I mean, I think they run the business on, of course, they're a celebrity, but she runs a business on Insta. So one of my friend's daughter, in fact, he's also one of the incubators. She started in lockdown this artificial jewelry venture on Instagram. They do close to 6 lakh rupees business every month, right? So, and they must be making 20-30% profit. But the point is that you just need an intention to start. You don't have to wait for somebody to come, funding, etc. That will happen subsequently. If you look at Mama-Earth recently, which has become $1 billion company, they just started because the husband and wife had a kid who had skin deficiencies and they couldn't find a product which was chemical free. So they said, listen, then why don't we start it in India? I mean, there are so many kids are born in India. And the next year they had a turnover of 20 crores. And now they've raised 750 crores and they're $1 billion company. So you never know what happens. If you're focused, if your intentions are good, if your intentions are right, and if your research is correct, and if you find out the right pain point, I think you'll be able to strike gold. It's possible.
The simple formula is identify a problem, give a solution. That's all. The problem is we complicate it. Keep it simple. So identify the problem, find a solution. That's all. That's all. Add technology to it.
Yeah, without tech, I think you should not even think of any business today. It's not possible. Yeah.
You can think, but you cannot grow to a level. You cannot grow. Today's time, with tech, you can grow 1,000 times, much more. Scale it up.
We have another question from a participant called Mushtari Khan. In the present era of digitalization, how should you sustain with similar business running and maintain your uniqueness?
Yeah. So it's a good question. I mean, this is the same question I think even Mr. Ambani is facing, or the new startup will face. This is the agility of business. There is no other choice. You need to up your level. Keep this in mind. First, the person grows, then the business. So you need to up your level. The further you go, the more research you do, the more understanding you do, the more conferences you attend, the more people you meet, the more discussions you do, the more books you read, the more time you spend on understanding entrepreneurship and your business is the key. You need to own the content, and that's where the differentiation will come. You cannot be saying that no, touch and go. It's not possible. So it is a challenge throughout for everyone. There's no two ways about it. You need to keep fighting the battle. In fact, one of the reasons today's new era is that no, if you get funded, you're successful. But listen, after you get funded, there are 100 more companies of similar ideas going to come in the market. They're going to come out with better ideas. In fact, when Yahoo was there, Google came out with search engine, but Google search engine had a better algo than Yahoo. Yahoo is not around today, but I mean, Google is Google, right? So there are going to be new kids in the block. There are going to be new people in the block. There are going to be new technology. It is you who has to up your level. It is all about you. Ultimately, it's about you who's sitting on the CEO chair or the co-founder chair. It's all about you. So the more you up your level, the better it is for you to sustain the organization.
We have another question by Dr. Zahid Bhatt. Has the pandemic changed the entrepreneurial paradigm across the globe?
Yeah, absolutely. In fact, a case in point being, one of our ventures was called as, it is called as Stock Market Institute. We started in 2010, and we're the pioneers in stock market training in India. And after, of course, Bombay Stock Exchange. And it so happened that we were doing offline business, and pandemic came. We went online. We realized that online is the way forward, but then we realized that cost of acquisition is pretty high, because we feel that the cost of acquisition will be low when you go online, but it is actually very high. So we converted into an app, and now we are in the midst of raising $2 million, and we're valuing it close to around $20 million. The game is changed completely. Pandemic has accelerated digitization, and that opens the entire Pandora box of opportunities. There are 60,000 startups in India, and if you look at it, everything is technology oriented, and there are more than 10,000 product companies in India. Product companies are not in one or two in India. Now we're talking about 10,000 product companies, or maybe more. So in this era, pandemic has opened the entire Pandora box. You look at education; it has accelerated online. I mean, we are doing conference online today. When had we thought about doing conference online? We have close to, let's say, yesterday I was told that there are 1 lakh participants. When did you have 1 lakh participants in your conference? It's not possible. So we have digitization has been accelerated because of pandemic. I think it's a boon which has happened to the entire world. The entire pattern and the way of doing business is changed. It's become global. It is not local anymore. Listen, I mean, there's a website called, I think, Fiverr, FIVER. I can hire a consultant from, let's say, sitting in Europe or somebody else to do my influencer marketing here, right? Which I never thought of before. So it is completely transformed. So you need to be global in your approach, but local in your thinking. So that's the way forward.
So how it has changed for our industries? Earlier, it was, when we started, it was only about, dining. People come in, they have to eat food and dine. That's all. But today I see some 500 startups are there in food industry alone, who are connected to the restaurant, who are ready to promote your business, who are ready to give platform for online ordering and all that stuff. So this new opportunity has started because of the pandemic. 500 new platforms are there who are trying to sell your food. So you need to choose which is the best one. You need to choose the best among all of them to sort it out, which helps your business to grow. So today it's not about only you. It's about how you can manage these platforms also, because they account for almost 30 to 40% of your business. Right. You have to make use of these platforms very, in a very organic way.
We have another question from a participant, Arpit Chauhan. What do you think about the increasing unemployment in a country like India, which affects the business?
So you need to go a little more deeper into it. Unemployment in which sector or which area or which cadre, rather, I would say. So if you look at all the government schemes towards infrastructure, is towards catering to that cadre where there is unemployment. Of course, we are running a very high unemployment. I think it should be close to around 7.5%. During pandemic, it was 17.5%. So the only way is there are 2-3 patterns. One is the government spend on infrastructure. Two is if you look at if you heard Mr. Modi's speech 2 days back, startups are going to be the great fuel for taking charge in creating more employment. And three is business owners. So all these are creating more businesses. Like for example, Swiggy has more than 100,000 people on their rolls. So all these new startups, new age things are going to create a lot of employment. At the same time, infrastructure spend is the key for ensuring that we take care of that unemployment part of it.
And all these corporates, from cities, it has to channelize to small towns, villages. That's where the unemployment is more. In cities, it is not that much. In cities, in fact, there is crisis. If you see our industry, we are in short of labor. What I see crisis is more of in small towns and villages. So somewhere this big industry has to channelize, and that channel has to go towards the last part of the country, small villages. That's where I think in that process an employment will be created.
And also there's a new industry which has erupted now is freelancing industry. So that is big. So that is also kind of catering to an extent the unemployment part of it. But it's unskilled labor
system. Skill-based, training should be given. Now, skill-based courses have to start. So you can't have a general education. It's more of skill-based education if you can give. I think employment is not a challenge. We have to just reorganize everything.
I think it's more of a specialist era rather than a generalist. So you need to have polymaths, of course, but specialists are the ones who are ruling the game today.
Yes.
We have a question from another participant called Subhash. With the present market, what are the products or services which have scope for entrepreneurship?
Every product. I just told you, identify a problem, find a solution. For that matter, any problem, if you are able to give a solution, that is a hit in the market. Any product for that matter.
It's a consumer-driven economy. We have close to 130 crore population. Whatever you produce, whatever service you give will be consumed. There will be people to take it. But like Jia said, you need to know what you want to solve, which industry you want to be in. For example, my personality suits, let's say for services, I can't do product. Gia's personality suits for, let's say, hospitality industry, but say somebody whose personality will suit for agriculture or manufacturing. So you need to take up those ones. And I think there's a scope for everything in this world. So it's fine. You can choose. But having said that, yes, few things to keep in mind is it should be scalable. If it is not scalable, it's a very niche one, then you can do. It's a lifestyle business. For example, we have started a kickboxing institute called Rock Solid. We know it's a lifestyle business. If I take tech, it's scalable. But if I do more of a physical center, I can open, let's say, 30 centers, 50 centers. It's not scalable, right? And you won't even get specialist trainers of kickboxing. So it's more of a niche business. So you should know what you want to achieve. So if it's a niche business, then you need to choose those ones. Otherwise, it has to be scalable. Means there are industries of that sort. Let's say education, fintech, technology oriented, deep technology, AI. Yeah.
And timing is very important. Whatever you start, the timing is very important. Just make sure that the timing has come. Sometimes your idea will be ahead of time. Sometimes it will be behind. So your timing is very important.
So the next question is by Sagar Behra. What are the importance of social capital for startups?
I'm sorry?
What are the importance of social capital for startups?
Social capital.
So no, if you can brief, what do you mean by social capital? You can check with them.
Right. So I'll take up another question in the meanwhile. The failure rate of entrepreneurs in the recent times, what is your opinion regarding inclusion of wholesalers and retailers under the ambit of MSMEs category by the government?
Oh yeah. I mean, I think
that's a good move.
See, it's a well thought out thing, because see, when you are registered with MSME, you get hosts of benefits. For example, your interest rates are low. If your money is stuck with somebody who's not a MSME, he's supposed to pay you on priority. During filing of bankruptcy, first money is cleared off is MSMEs. So it's very good. There are some regulations and there's some category which government has created for MSMEs. So it's a good move, and there's fantastic benefits which people are enjoying around it. So I think it's a very good move.
See, during pandemic, a lot of traders and wholesalers have suffered bad debts. The amount of bad debts has increased to next level. And that's where government came in to protect them. So when you are registered under MSME, a hell lot of benefits you get to recover your debts, And that's where government, the main primary reason of getting them included was to recover the debts. And that's where they got this registration. And it's a very good move because we know a lot of traders and wholesalers who have suffered in this pandemic. That was the primary reason of getting included them for MSME. And secondly, COVID loan was only given to MSMEs,
Yes,
so government has to include traders and wholesalers into this so that even COVID loans can be, they can apply for it and they can get benefit out of it. So that was the second reason for getting them included in the MSME thing. So both were helpful.
One last. Yes, please go ahead.
To answer your previous question, I think if the gentleman was mentioning, was meaning to say social capital means crowdfunding or crowdsourcing. I mean, I'll just answer
Some
that.
unknown people helping him, social, social, without knowing you are giving loans to him. Yeah.
So I think that P2P industry is picked up pretty well, person to person, and crowdfunding is doing big. That is the way forward in future. Like there was a previous question as to if I have an idea, who will fund me, etc. I mean, there are platforms, you just go and put it there. If somebody likes your idea, I mean, he just puts the money into it. So I think this is a new way of raising capital. Each one of us have some kitty of money, but let's say I have 100,000, but I cannot give you $1 million, but I can give you 50,000 rupees. But like me, if there are 500 people, you get your money. So these are good things which are come out in last couple of years. So it's a good thing. I mean, look forward for this kind of innovations in the industry.
I think what the gentleman means is social capital unorganized. It is more of unorganized. You don't have any contract, between two parties when you lend someone. So there are people, people who, but those loans are again very smaller size. That cannot be big size without contract on trust level. That is on a very small scale. So it is unorganized. On an unorganized level, it is happening, but on a very small scale.
Right. We have one last question from Ms. Bhanupriya. What characters or skills are most important for startup leaders?
Jay, you want to go for it? Then I'll go.
I believe networking. One should have the best networking skills with him.
Yeah, I think Jay is right. One is definitely networking because everything is possible to solve through networking. Two, you need to have a grit. Without a grit, it's a long-term thinking. Even though the now era says it's a 3-year-old game and I'll get out, but you will be an entrepreneur for life. So it's a long game. So the skill sets what you develop as an entrepreneur or personal skills what you develop is very, very key. Because it's ultimately you're managing human beings. So apart from networking, the grit is important. You need to hang on, come what may in the business. I'm not saying that if it's a loss-making business, you have to continue it, but you need to hang on in entrepreneurship as such. Because it takes time. You never know when the time comes. For example, case in point being, look at Elon Musk. He was about to file bankruptcy, and today he's the richest man on the earth, right? So he just stood fast. He said that I believe in my idea. I'm not going to move on. I'm not going to give up. So those things are pretty important. So grit as well as networking, I think, is the key for today's generation. And two, a very important thing is, of course, you need to be tech savvy. You don't need to know coding, but you need to be tech savvy. You need to know cyber. You need to know AI. You need to know ML. You need to know because the entire products are, you need to know crypto, you need to know Bitcoins, you need to know all this because, for example, I was talking to somebody else. His son is invested in Metaverse. He invested 3,000. I was wondering what kind of a return is that. I didn't take the return. Opportunities are there, but you need to know today's technology very well. So that's important.
See, speed is important, but have patience. Have patience for your turn, Just don't lose your patience. Your turn will come, but have that patience.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Thank you so much, sir. And on that note, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to Jia sir and Abdul sir from bringing in your expertise and experience before us and engaging in such fruitful, constructive, and open exchanges throughout the session and elaborating on the incubation of Jain deemed to be university. A special thanks goes to our Chancellor, Dr. Chenraj Roychand, and our Director, Dr. Dinesh Neelkant, who have been instrumental in bringing to us this incubation session and giving us an opportunity to have an idea of this concept, which has helped thousands of entrepreneurs till date. Thank you so much for investing your time with us this evening. Thank you once again, sir. Over to Dr. Abhishek Venkateshwar.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. That was indeed incredible. As we are thrilled with this wonderful panel discussion, having a detailed elaboration on the entrepreneurial experiences shared by our panelists with the same pace of excitement, let's move on. But before that, I would request SRDC to play a video. Thank you. Let's move on to our
Good
first
evening,
session.
sir. Good evening, sir. Mr. Michael Goldberg, we welcome you, sir.
Nice to see everybody.
Hello, sir.
On this note, let's move on to our first session. I would like to invite Dr. Rupa KV to introduce our first speaker of the session. Over to Dr. Rupa.
With immense respect and gratitude, I feel honored to take this privilege to welcome our first keynote speaker of the session, Mr. Michael Goldberg. Mr. Goldberg is an experienced venture capitalist and entrepreneur whose teaching is focused on the theory of entrepreneurship.
Just a moment. Dr. Rupa, please excuse me. Yeah, ma'am, I didn't need to correct your voice or. Sorry, Mr. Michael, for some technical error. Hope you don't mind. Just give us a few seconds.
No problem at all.
No, it's not fine. No, it's not fine.
No.
No, just wait for a second.
You may not like to use your headphone, perhaps. So,
Am I audible now?
Thank you, Dr. Rupa. Good evening once again. I feel honored and take this privilege to welcome our first keynote speaker of the session, Mr. Michael Goldberg. Mr. Goldberg is an experienced venture capitalist and entrepreneur whose teaching is focused on the field of entrepreneurship and early stage finance. Goldberg is an associate professor of design and innovation at the Weatherhead School of Management, and inaugural executive director at the Wheel Institute of Entrepreneurship, Case Western Reserve University. With support from the Burton D. Morgan Foundation, Goldberg created a massive open online course, MOOC, called Beyond Silicon Valley, Growing Entrepreneurship in Transitioning Economies, which has attracted over 175,000 students from 190 countries with subtitles in 16 languages. He's also the author of Beyond Silicon Valley, How Online Course Helped Support Global Entrepreneurs. Goldberg co-founded the Bridge Investment Fund for Venture Capitalists. He's also been the Director of International Business Development for America Online, responsible for structuring and negotiating international partnerships in Asia, including AOL's joint venture with Lenovo to develop interactive services for China market. Goldberg spent several years in South Africa working for the National Democratic Institute, designing and implementing water education programs for South Africa's historic first democratic election in 1994. Goldberg also worked for Microsoft and International Management Group. He has deep experience teaching entrepreneurship in international markets. He was awarded Fulbright Fellowship to teach entrepreneurship at the National Economics University in Hanoi, Vietnam, the Polytechnic in Windhoek, Namibia, and the Association Canada de Startups. He has appeared as a frequent guest panelist on MSNBC's Your Business and has written on international entrepreneurship for Forbes, CNBC, entrepreneur.com, and the list just goes on. So we extend a warm welcome to you, sir. Please deliver your talk. Over to you, sir.
Great. Well, good afternoon, everyone. If I could show you outside my window, we had a huge snowstorm here in Cleveland, where I live. So when this morning Dr. Varsha called me, it was very difficult to walk through they haven't plowed all the streets. So, but I made it to my office to be with you today. So it's great to see you. It's warm in the Zoom room, but it's cold outside. I want to thank Dr. Agarwal for inviting me. Dr. Abhishek, thanks for that awesome intro. Also want to thank Dr. Royshan, Dr. Singh, Dr. Nilkant for putting this great session together. It looks like a lot of you I know some of your lovely faces are here with me in the Zoom room, and then it looks like there's a lot of others in the participant, but let's have this be as interactive as we can. I put my LinkedIn link in the chat. Again, Dr. Agarwal, I'm not sure if everybody can see the chat, but and I put a link to my book, which is free as a PDF download. And I'm happy to share other resources, particularly related to my Beyond Silicon Valley course. I'm excited. Your next speaker, and I know Dr. Agarwal, I don't think you coordinated this. Dr. Hisrick is my friend. He also lives in Cleveland. He also used to teach entrepreneurship at Case Western Reserve University. So tell him I say hello. He's great. He's been a mentor of mine. So you get a lot of Cleveland today. So let me do a screen share. I have a presentation. Hold on. And then, but we're gonna make it interactive, hopefully. Okay. Let's see. One second. Can you give me, Dr. Agarwal, can you see the
It's coming,
is it
it's
in
coming, sir.
presentation
It's
mode?
coming perfectly, perfect, sir.
Very nice. Okay. So those are my kids. Does anyone know which country that flag is from? You can put it in the chat if you want.
Participants, you can respond in chat box. We are opening it. right
Yeah,
now.
this is, otherwise I'm gonna call on you.
Yes. Yeah, so let's make it interactive and let's welcome our participants so that they can start putting their responses. So sir is asking which country's flag it is. Okay,
Okay,
we are
China,
starting getting
North Korea, Vietnam.
responses.
Thank you, Vijaya. Okay, USA, no. So Vietnam. So, and thanks. Yeah, this will be fun. Let's use the chat so I don't feel lonely in the snow here. So those are my kids. That was in 2012. And I was on a Fulbright fellowship, which is a US State Department program that sends both faculty from the US and students overseas. We have an active Fulbright program in India, and then Fulbright professors from places like India and students to the US. By the way, it's a great program for those of you that are interested. So I was in Vietnam and I got a request from the Ministry of Science and Technology in Vietnam. They have the something called the National Agency for Technology, Entrepreneurship, and Commercialization. It's within their one of the government ministries. And they said, would you teach a course about how Vietnam can become more like Silicon Valley? And now another opportunity for great participation. So here's my question to you this evening. You hear this all the time, like people are like, we in Hanoi, we in Mumbai, we in Cleveland, everybody wants to be like Silicon Valley. And let's use the chat again. Why does everyone want to have what Silicon Valley has? What does Silicon Valley have that is so attractive to other communities around the world, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's India? What is so great about Silicon Valley? Okay, innovation, IT, freedom to fail, great point. Capital, thank you, Rajat. Heaven of technology, entrepreneurship, startups, entertainment, technology for tomorrow, opportunities, good vibe, leadership, innovation. This is great. Keep them coming. Future. Persistence. Okay, that grit, networking, versatility, R&D, tech, innovation, capital, industry, great. Sustainability, global technology, design, attractive, creativity, cash, cow, love it. Technology and innovation, thinking out of the box, love it. Good atmosphere, freedom to explore, people-centric, global technology, innovation. This is great. Lateral thinking, future, innovative business, love it. There's a market to sell your products, absolutely. New ideas, interaction with best minds. I'll say minds from all over the world. I mean, there's many great companies. Love it. Okay. Indian people, you're right. I mean, go to any coffee shop in Silicon Valley, you will find awesome people from all over the world, including India. Okay, this is great. This is good. I'm glad you guys are there. Sometimes I feel like when we're on Zoom, we're all doing something else. So I'm glad you guys are here and commenting. This is great. Venture capital risk. Okay, all awesome. I mean, I just put a couple, somebody talked about this. I mean, you've got these iconic companies that started in the Valley, Google, Facebook, Apple, and then folks leave these companies and go start something else. So here's another quiz, because you guys are doing such a good job in the chat. These three people have something in common. These three people have something in common. See if you can guess. These three people, it's kind of around, this is around talent. See if we can guess what these three lovely faces, people of the revolution, I like it. Yeah, sort of. They smile. They weren't dropouts. Okay, they're not dropouts. They actually attended the same university. Which university did they attend? You're gonna have to quickly Google which university I'm from. Harvard, no. Stanford, no, not Stanford. Wharton, no, I attended there, but where are these? Where do I work? Yale, no. No, still haven't gotten it. Morocco, no. The Weatherhead School, okay, yes, thank you, Subash. Cleveland, yes. So these three lovely people all left Cleveland. They actually all grew up in Cleveland, which is my hometown. They all attended Case Western Reserve University, which is where I work. And they all moved out to San Francisco. John started Apartment List. Hallie Tecco started a company called Rock Health, a healthcare accelerator. And then Matthew Stepka went to work at a little company at the time called Google. So this talent question, and this, I mean, a number of you talked about Indian talent moving to the Valley. Cleveland talent moves and leaves Cleveland. And then lastly, this last column, again, in the chat, what are these? These three are all the same kind of company. What kind of companies are these? VC, thanks. Akshita, there we go, thank you, venture capitalist. So that's where the money is, and a lot of you guys said that, okay. So this is, you know, among the things that Silicon Valley has and that everybody wants. But instead of doing, again, I remember I got this request in Vietnam. They said, would you do a talk about Silicon Valley? I said, let me talk about another community. I don't want to do how Vietnam can become like Silicon Valley. Does anyone want to guess what that city is right there, that picture? You guys didn't know you were going to have to work so much. What city is this? Hanoi? No. Good guess. San Francisco? Nope. California? Nope. Italy? I wish. Seattle? No. Not Ho Chi Minh City. There'd be a lot of people on motorbikes. New York? Nope. Cleveland. Thank you. Harshal. Nailed it. So Cleveland, that's where I am right now. Casablanca, nice try. This is fun. You guys are all just putting in cities where you would like to be in. So it is Cleveland. Thank you. At least a couple of you guys answered that correctly. All right. Who's that? Who is this gentleman? Thank you, Harshal. LeBron James. So a lot of time he's not, what team does he play for now? He doesn't play for Cleveland anymore. Who does he play for now? Thank you, the Lakers. Harshal is an NBA fan. So he was once here. A lot of times when I'm traveling and I say I'm from Cleveland, people are like, oh, LeBron. I'm like, yeah, we had LeBron, and he won the championship. It was very exciting. So, but I didn't teach a session about Cleveland because of LeBron. You know, 100 years ago, Cleveland was a very important center of of entrepreneurship. So we actually sit, has anyone ever been to Cleveland on this call? Put in the chat if you've been to Cleveland. I'm guessing not too many of you. Anyone been to Cleveland? Not yet. Okay, well, come visit. You have an invitation. So we were once, a very important city in the entrepreneurship space. We are located in between Pittsburgh and Detroit. I'll put the link to the book shortly again. Or maybe Dr. Agarwal, you can put it in there while I'm chatting. This is another question for you lovely people. This was our most famous entrepreneur from Cleveland from 100 years ago. Who is it? So maybe he's got something stuck in his ear. Who is this famous? There we go. Rajat, thank you. John D. Rockefeller is from Cleveland, our most famous entrepreneur. So we were 100 years ago, we were doing great. And then our, like a lot of cities, sometimes they refer to like cities like Cleveland or Detroit as the Rust Belt, because we were once having many factories and a lot of our industry left. We were the 5th largest city in the United States in 1920. Does anyone want to guess? Put in the chat what number city we are. I think I have the number from 2010. What number? The book is available on Amazon, but it's free on PDF if you want it. What number city? We were 5th largest. What size in the US city are we now? Another quiz question for you. We were the 5th largest, and now 25, 54. Harshal, you're pretty good here. 47. So a lot of our people left. So like I grew up in Cleveland. I was interested in startups, and I decided to leave because this was not a place to really grow startup companies. All right, we have another quiz question. You guys, there's so much quizzing and so little time. Entrepreneur Magazine in 2001 did a ranking of 61 cities in the United States and how well we supported entrepreneurship. So there were 61 cities surveyed. What number ranking do you think Cleveland got out of 61 and how well we supported entrepreneurship? 5, 1, 52, this is good, 18, 22, 15. I'll wait till someone gets it right. Think bad. 61. Thank you, Umar. There we go. Here's my little graphic. Yeah, not good. Not good. Thank you, Madhu. Thank you, Chikapa. Okay. So, in Silicon Valley, I mean, what I want to talk to you today about is like in Silicon Valley at this point, and there's a whole history of how Silicon Valley relied on government and funding to kind of grow the ecosystem. But at this point, if any of you were pitching out in San Francisco, you would be pitching to private investors about an investment in your company. The government of California or the city of San Francisco isn't involved in funding startups, but in Cleveland or in Northeast Ohio, you had very heavy involvement from government, and we'll talk about that in a second, and donors as well. Okay. So part of the story in Cleveland was really through government support through our provincial government. So as you may know, in the US, we have 50 states. I'm in the state of Ohio, and the state of Ohio, through a program called the Third Frontier, which is a actually $2.3 billion US program focused on commercialization and entrepreneurship. So the state really put a lot of resources against trying to grow entrepreneurship, and we'll talk about how that was implemented. Another area where funding came out of donors and philanthropy. And I'll maybe again go to the chat. You know, we have in the United States, there are tax advantages, like for like the largest, actually you can put in the chat, what's the largest foundation in the United States? If anyone wants to guess. Bill and Melinda Gates, thank you. You may have heard of Bill Gates and Melinda Gates from Microsoft. So there's a way they formed, actually with some money from Warren Buffett, the largest foundation. There's a tax benefit in the US to take the money that you make if you want to donate it to NGOs or nonprofits or charities, you put it in a foundation. So the Ford Foundation is actually also large. What are some of the kinds of things that donors and foundations support typically? Just put in the chat, like what are some of the types of causes or areas that foundations or donors may support? Education, good. Healthcare, poverty, absolutely. Medical research, for sure. So these are typical industry, maybe, well, entrepreneurship at Umar Mohanad. So this question is, in innovation, you know, in Cleveland, you had donors begin to say, like, if we don't support entrepreneurship and innovation, there's not going to be people here, you know, even like the arts. We have one of the most wonderful orchestras in the world. And so actually I went Saturday night to the Cleveland Orchestra. And if they don't support things like entrepreneurship and startups and growing new companies, there wouldn't be enough people to go to orchestras here. So donors, through something called the Fund for Our Economic Future, started supporting entrepreneurship as well. So let's talk about NGOs. So why, let's go to the chat again. Why is it necessary at a very high level? Like, why do NGOs exist? Why is it important kind of philosophically? And I know there's a very vibrant NGO community in India. Like, why do you have to create NGOs? For service, good. These are some of the things that NGOs do. Why do NGOs have to exist? All right, bridge the gap in social products. So if you're bridging a gap, which entity is not sufficiently providing these resources? Where's the gap? So it's helping, but like, why do they need to exist? Okay, so government, right? So if government was supporting, right? So government and corporates failed, great. You know, in societies where things are functioning, you have government providing some of this social safety net, and you've got the private sector working to do the work that the private sector does, but there's gaps, right? So NGOs, or nonprofit organizations, we call them in the US, kind of fill the gap. Interestingly, and you can ask Professor Hisrick about this when he comes after me, Bob was actually involved in helping start an NGO in Cleveland called Jumpstart, which was set up. Actually, it started at Case Western Reserve University and then funds the growth of startup companies. And they actually have a fund out of which money is invested. And interestingly, Jumpstart had invested about over 100 companies since its creation, and with an idea of like, if they were successful, then you put money back into the fund. What is it called? This company in 2017 sold for over $1 billion. What's it called when you sell a company for over $1 billion? There's a name for that kind of company. Unicorn. Thank you. You guys are good. So there was a unicorn. Oh, you can see it in there. That was our first tech unicorn. Very good. Thank you. So NGOs get created to fill a gap. And so we've done that in Cleveland. And in Cleveland, organizations like Jumpstart have money from government and donors, actually, and also the private sector. So let's talk about the role of universities. I mean, I know a number of you are working at universities. Universities can play a very important role in supporting entrepreneurship. I chose one of our great entrepreneurs from Case Western Reserve University. She's originally from India, like a lot of our great entrepreneurs on our campus. Charu Ramanathan is a biomedical engineering PhD that came from India to Case Western Reserve to study. That device that you can see next to her is something to do of monitoring a number of things in the cardiology space. Our university invested in, and sometimes when great researchers come up with technology, that technology then might get licensed out to larger companies, but sometimes it gets created into startups. So Cardio Insight was what's called a spun out of the university. Got money from Jumpstart and from venture capital, and eventually that company was acquired for almost $100 million by Medtronic, which is a large company. So that's a success story. And there's different work that happens on university campuses to support entrepreneurship, sometimes like this, spinning out companies. Let's talk about accelerators. I know that India has a number of accelerators. Does anyone know what some of the famous accelerators, maybe some of the most famous accelerators are in the United States? No guessing in the chat. You guys are so fast usually. What's the most famous accelerator in the US? Airbnb came out of this accelerator. Techstars is one of them. Yeah, Techstars is probably one of the top two. What's the other one that's often referred to? Dropbox came out of this accelerator. AngelPad, I'm not as familiar with. Founder Labs, keep going. Thank you, Y Combinator. Thanks, Shalini. So Y Combinator is a very famous one. In Ohio, the state of Ohio through the Third Frontier was funding the formation of an accelerator. Yep, a lot of you guys got Y Combinator. Very good, thank you. So, this question like Y Combinator or Techstars are for-profit private accelerators. I don't know in India what the accelerator landscape and if any of the accelerators are getting money from government or nonprofits, but in Ohio, the accelerators get subsidized here. Let's talk about angel investors and funds. Put in the chat, what is an angel investor? What is an angel investor? Who is an angel investor? It's the definition of an angel investor. Okay, so fundraising. People who fund at initial stage. Thank you, Rajat. And you know, the important thing is people, high net worth, they have a lot of money. They want to stay anonymous. Not necessarily. Some don't want to be anonymous. An investor with no expectations. I mean, Mithun, that's an interesting point. Not necessarily. A lot of times they want to make money. Sometimes maybe not. Good. These are very good. So in Ohio, the North Coast Angel Fund, they actually changed their name recently to North Coast Ventures, is subsidized by the state. So what is an angel fund, if anybody knows what that is? What's the difference between an angel investor, who's an individual, and an angel fund? You want to put that in the chat. It's an angel fund. So huge funds given to them by, one is public and the other private. No, they're usually both private. What else? What other guesses might you have? What's an angel fund? And why is an angel fund? Why would the state of Ohio, why would the government of Ohio get involved in helping encourage to form an angel fund? What's the difference between the crowdfunding platform? Not exactly. It's a little bit different. Let's keep guessing. So a large, more money pooled together. So you're onto something. So it's bringing together a bunch of individual angels put together. It kind of operates like a venture capital fund, though usually as a manager, like-minded investors. These are all good. So the idea is that if you put a fund together, a dedicated fund, like if we were all, let's say we were having the Jane Angel Network, and we would have, you know, Dr. Varsha, in addition to putting together great conferences, has got a startup and she's pitching us. So we would hear her pitch. Maybe some of us would invest, maybe some of us wouldn't, but we're making a decision as individual angels. If we came together as a fund and we had a fund manager, typically funds will put, you know, you're basically investing into the fund. It's a more professionally managed approach, and they're going to actually invest in more companies. So in Ohio, there is incentives from the state to put money in an angel fund. We can talk more about that. So this is different. You know, if you're an angel investor in California, there's no tax incentive or government incentive to put investing. You're just investing to make money. So now let's talk about venture capital. So the Ohio Capital Fund, and they've an investor in my venture capital fund. Where do you think the Ohio Capital Fund gets their money? Who's the investor in the Ohio Capital Fund? Which kind of entity? Angel investors? No. Public, yes. So government is an investor, in this case, the state of Ohio, in the Ohio Capital Fund. Do you think that the state of California has a California Capital Fund where the government of California is investing, in this case, in venture capital funds in California? Do you think so? No, they don't need to, right? The venture capital funds have plenty of money, but in Ohio, why do you think in Ohio, the government of Ohio felt like they needed to set up a $150 million fund to invest in Ohio-based venture capital funds? Why would the government of Ohio do that? So lack of funding by VCs. They want to encourage entrepreneurship. Keep going. Good. Public involvement, but why? Scarcity of investors. Yes. So, you know, venture funds are not, in Ohio, don't have enough what we call limited partner investors. So this idea that the government needs to be involved and invest in Ohio-based funds or attracting funds to Ohio. By the way, this Ohio Capital Fund was not renewed by the governor because he felt like the new governor was like, no, there's enough money here. So these are interesting questions, like how much involvement should government have? Dr. Varsha, can I ask, I just want to do a time check. How am I doing for time?
Yes, sir.
How much time do we still have together?
Yes, sir. 20 more minutes you can take, sir. Not a problem.
20 more fun-filled minutes together. Okay, thank you. Okay, I'm just looking at my clock. Okay. Okay. So here's a discussion question, and we can put it in the chat as well. I mean, this is essentially what I was talking about. Like, why should government be involved? Why not just let the markets decide, like they are in Silicon Valley? And how is this working in India? And maybe what we'll do is I'll just continue on and put your thoughts in the chat on this, because I'm curious how this is working in India, or how you think it should be working. Should government be more involved in places like Cleveland or India, or should government be focused on other priorities? I mean, particularly given the global pandemic, there's a lot of government priorities at the moment. So think about this and put your comments in the chat. So back to like my Vietnam. So it's funny because it was 10 years ago. So this is, actually this, you can tell I was ahead of the curve. This is the head of the Ohio Third Frontier at the time, Lisa Delp, on Skype. We remember Skype. You guys probably remember Skype. And this is just like you guys, that was the morning in Ohio, evening in Hanoi. So I was doing a conference where people were joining, like Lisa, via Skype. So after that conference, which was a week long, I brought different people in. We took a picture afterwards. And it's funny, like I had never really taught a seminar about like entrepreneurial ecosystem development. And, but I did that in Vietnam. And then I came back to the US, and one of my deans, I was telling him about this seminar, and he asked if I was interested in teaching a MOOC. Does anybody know what MOOC stand for? I want to put in the chat. What does MOOC stand for? If anybody knows. Massive open online course, exactly. So it's funny. So I had never heard of a MOOC. This was 2013. So I Googled it after I left his office. And then I ended up putting together, as the person who introduced me mentioned, we put together a MOOC, and these are like I did it kind of like documentary style. And I can also put in the chat, you can see it on Coursera, but I have all the videos on YouTube as well. And it was interesting. Like I didn't know if people would be very interested. We did a case study, kind of like I walked you through today of Cleveland, and we weren't sure if anybody would be interested, but we had a lot of people from around the world. And let me just quickly talk about a couple of the collaborations we had, and then with the remaining 15 minutes, we can have questions. It was funny, Greece, which at that time was sort of going through a financial crisis, was like very interested in the Cleveland story. We were doing lots of sessions, kind of like this, where we were sharing ideas. We were arguing with each other in a good way about, some of the topics we covered today. I went to Greece at the kind of the ancient agora. We were having discussions about supporting entrepreneurship. a very small country, new country called Kosovo. They were very interested in what we were doing. I ended up going to Kosovo to visit. There's my friend Fatos with wearing his LeBron jersey. Iran, which is not a place that the US has a lot of collaboration with. They were very interested in the MOOC, and we have subtitles in 16 different languages. So this was somebody from Iran who was excited about the course. I'm probably going to pronounce it wrong, Uttarakhand. Did I pronounce that correctly, Dr. Varsha? Maybe close?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. It's correct.
Okay. Close-ish. So Dr. Ajit Nigam, who was a professor based in Uttarakhand, put together a bunch of collaborations and meetups around the course. That was a lot of fun. I did put a link to the book. So, it's been fun. Like, we're kind of like this. I'm having a lot of discussions. It's crazy that the class has been up since 2014. And I'll stop sharing my screen now. Yeah, so I've traveled all over the world. I've never been to India, so maybe some of you lovely people can invite me post-pandemic. I can come.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. We would love to, sir.
You guys in person. I've always wanted to go. It's funny. India is probably is the big missing place. I was invited a number of times, but I've never been able to come. So anyway, with that, let me pause and see what questions you guys have with the remaining.
Yeah. So now I would request all our participants, if you have any questions from our speakers, please start posting in our Q&A box. And by that time, I have first question, which I'll take it for you, sir, with your permission.
Sure.
Yeah. So first question is from Dr. Muhammad Shani. How do you view the recent advancement of China in technology and entrepreneurship as compared to USA? Will they ever surpass in the race?
It's a great question. Thank you, Dr. Hanif. So I was privileged, and I worked on a joint venture for America Online with Lenovo, and starting in like 1999, 2000. So we met with Jack Ma. I kind of watched the initial rise of the internet and technology activity in China kind of firsthand. Obviously, China is putting a lot of resource into growing their homegrown technology industry. And it's impressive. I mean, there's a lot that is happening there. I still feel like the US, and obviously without getting into the politics, like one of the things that makes the United States so great as an innovative entrepreneurial economy is actually attracting the best and the brightest talent from other countries. So to me, something like, 40% of venture-backed startups in San Francisco, Silicon Valley were started by immigrants. We have unbelievable talent from places like India and other parts of the world. Under President Trump, it became more difficult for immigrants to come here. Even now that we've changed administrations and we're welcoming more people here and making it easier for talent to stay, the pandemic has made it very challenging. So one thing that I think is part of the US secret sauce is immigrant talent, and China doesn't really have that. It's a more insular approach. They've attracted some foreign talent, but anyway, that's one comment I would make.
Thank you so much, sir,
Sure.
for your valuable input. The next question comes is, how has Vietnam promoted women successfully?
Yeah, I mean, it's been a while since I've been to Vietnam, although I've continued to follow it. Actually, I was supposed to go to Vietnam the summer of 2020 with my daughter, who was doing an interesting project. She's now a freshman at Duke University in North Carolina, but she did a project in high school about a female entrepreneur that used to, I can put a link to it in the chat, who used to sell chicken in our neighborhood. And actually she interviewed a number of people that are supporting female entrepreneurs. I mean, I think the reality is, whether it's Vietnam, whether it's the US, I don't know much about support of female entrepreneurship in India. We as a world, certainly as a country in the US, have a long way to go. I think part of it is seeing more female venture capitalists. Oftentimes investors invest in people that look like them. So if you have, at least in the US, a lot of white male venture capitalists, they're going to invest in white male entrepreneurs. So we're seeing some of that cycle change. We do obviously have a lot of very successful South Asian, Indian entrepreneurs and investors in the US. Actually, I have a call this afternoon with one of our alums from our university who's been a really successful Indian. She came to the US. I mean, I think this story, and many of you know it well, we attract a talented graduate student to come to the US, to Case Western Reserve. I think somebody was asking about how do you get to Harvard Business School. I'm not sure. I was rejected by Harvard Business School, so I can't tell you myself. And then, keeping this talent in the US. And, I think the other thing, and many of you may have relatives in the US, I mean, just seeing people keeping a foot in the US and keeping a foot in a place like India is really important.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question comes from our own professor from our campus, Dr. Seema Sambhavi. While regenerative and green ventures are on the wish list of the entire humanity, do you see them becoming viable and profitable in the near
future? Dr. Barsha, can you repeat the first part?
Should I read the question again?
What was the first part of the question?
Yeah. While regenerative and green ventures are on the wish list.
Sorry, yeah. Sorry, I thought that's what you said.
No.
Yeah, I mean, very important topic, sustainability. I think, to me, when green ventures are making money, I mean, if you look up, Impossible Foods is an interesting case study in the US. The company was started with a focus on sustainability. These are plant-based meat. You're seeing, returns-focused capital go into companies. And, they might also have an interest in sustainability. I think at the end of the day, it's very critical, because these are companies, not nonprofits. You need to see investors need to make money. Perhaps they're willing to make a little bit less money because of the social impact, but at the end of the day, you need to make money. And I think we're starting to see it in the US.
Thank you so much, sir. The next question comes from Mr. Yogesh Jain, one of our participants. Seed funding is also very common in India, but yet success rate is very less. Do you want to make any comment? Possible reasons?
Yeah, no, thanks for the question, Yogesh. I don't know enough about India to know. Some of it just may be the maturity of the market. I mean, certainly from things that I've read, and we actually have an alum from Case Western Reserve named Vikram Gupta from a fund called Ivy Cap Ventures. He's been pretty prolific investor, investing at the early stage. So I don't know, maybe it's timing. I don't know a lot about the Indian market, so I can't say really from a comparison point of view, but perhaps the Indian time will come, but I don't know enough to really answer.
Yeah, sure, sir. Thank you for your input, sir. The next question comes from our participant, Dr. Zahid Bhat. How you see the human resource component in emerging? He means to say the changed role of HR in emerging startups in India.
Sure. So, I mean, maybe I'll even broaden the question, although maybe you weren't asking it. I mean, the reality of remote work is changing, it's changing the world. I mean, the fact that we're all sitting here, with pretty good internet connections on a conference today, or that some of you could be applying for a job with Twitter or Google or some startup based in the US, I think is really turning how we think about talent upside down. I mean, there are companies now that are fully distributed, which means there is no headquarters. So there's a company like called Automatic, which owns WordPress. If you're, I know we have 546 participants. I'm guessing it's a nice mix of professors and students and others. Like, it's a really, the pandemic, which has been such a disaster on so many levels for so many of us in our countries, like, I think is changing talent market. Not that there wasn't, outsourced talent in places like India working for multinationals before, but it's really accelerated. So I think it's a really interesting time for talent. The fact, hey, there's something about the experience. Like, I know somebody put in the chat about like, how can they come study in the US? Like, whether you're coming to Case Western Reserve or to Harvard Business School, like, and I love travel and I love the experience. As much as Zoom has been good and we're chatting and we're, it's not the same. In 2 minutes, I'm going to click goodbye and I'm going to be back to my snowy Cleveland. I would love nothing more than, well, you guys might not like the snow very much, but it'd be fun to like have you go have a snowball fight together outside my office and get to know each other and work together and do research together and study together. Like that, there's no substitute for that, sharing a meal together. But, it's clear that, strong internet connections, tools like Zoom are changing talent. So, yeah.
With your permission, can I take a few more questions? Because
Yeah,
our
of course,
participants are quite excited and I'm getting so many questions. So the next question comes from a participant, Mr. Ravi Shankar N. How to start social entrepreneurship?
Yeah, I think there's this question, like we do some work here at Case Western Reserve. We have something called the Fowler Center for Business as an Agent of World Benefit. And the idea, like social entrepreneurship, you could try to address a social issue through starting an NGO and getting the Gates Foundation to fund you, or you can start a business, right? So I think that's a really interesting decision point for social entrepreneurs. Are you trying to solve the problem with a business, or are you trying to solve the problem with an NGO? And there's a lot of enthusiasm around. There's a growing enthusiasm to try to solve it with a business. It doesn't always work. So I think that's the first question that you have to ask. Like, what's the best way? Can you solve this with a product or service in the market? Because that's not always the answer.
So I'll take from a participant, Shweta Verma. What is the most challenging issue for an entrepreneur, especially in the global context, keeping abreast of culture and ethics in the present scenario?
Yeah, there's so many challenges to entrepreneurs. Again, I'm assuming with 549 people on here, some of you are entrepreneurs. Most startups fail. And there's a variety of reasons they fail. Lack of capital, lack of experience with the team, market isn't there, not really understanding the customer. I think for those of us that you know, I mean, I know there's a lot of faculty on here. I mean, for those of us that work at universities, I mean, we're here to support students in their entrepreneurial journey. And frankly, even if those of you that are thinking about starting businesses, start them and it doesn't work out and you go work at a large company, like there's a lot of value to going on the startup journey, even if it fails. But there's not, I don't think there's one most challenging. I mean, there's so many challenges, like, and for those of you that are either on the entrepreneurial journey or have taken it, it's like, it's very difficult, you know, and some of you may be parents, you know, how do you balance all these things? It's like very challenging. Oftentimes it's like you're leaning into a spouse, for those of you that are married, to like, it's hard to have two entrepreneurs in a family. Like you might need your spouse to have a more steady, less crazy job to lean into your startup dreams.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inputs. I'll just take one last question with your kind permission.
Sure.
The question is from Mr. Arun Chandran. ESG has been gaining much traction these days with governments and for more greener world. Now, these models are usually put forward for more costlier way of working. Can startups sustain for long term with these costs?
Yeah, it's a great question. I mean,
should I repeat it, sir?
I think that there's an appreciation from investors that care about sustainability, that perhaps the return on investment as measured by financial return might be a bit less. You know, we often talk about double bottom line or triple bottom line. I mean, I think part of the challenge and the opportunity for sustainable startups, green startups, is like convincing, you have to convince your investor that this thing's going to work, and that the dream can be successful, but also that they may see impact across financial returns, but also, in some of these other areas.
Correct. So with this, we come to this end of this session. So thank you so much, sir, for such an engaging discussion. And it's been indeed a pleasure listening to your words of wisdom. And thank you for conferring your constructive views and enlightening us with entrepreneurship thoughts. It's been indeed a privilege to listen to your valuable ideas. Thank you once again, sir. And I especially love the way in this joined us and the way you have kept engaging our participants. It's highly appreciable. Thank you so much, sir. Oh my God.
There's the view of some snow. If anybody wants to go have a snowball
you can
fight.
just show it for our participants for a few seconds. So this is the weather in which sir has joined us.
It's cold.
Yeah. Yes, sir. Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Come visit me, but bring your warm clothes.
Correct.
And we'll have a snowball fight.
Sure, sir. I would love to, sir. We are all just waiting for this pandemic to get ended.
I know, that's true. Me too. I'm ready to start traveling.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir. So
thank you. Good. We'll say hi to Professor Hisrick for me.
Yes, sir. We are just waiting for him. I request you to stay so that all of us can interact with him. Just give us a few minutes.
Okay. Actually, I'll stay on. I can stay. Let me just check my.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. Thank you so much.
For a second, so I can say hi to him.
Yes.
It's funny.
Sure.
We're both in Cleveland, but it takes.
No problem, sir. Our pleasure, sir. Dr. Shiva.
Absolutely. Thank you so much, sir, for this wonderful session. And dear participants, at this moment, let me brief this lovely crowd with our 9 days journey, which began with paper presentations on 3 subsequent days, 10th, 11th, and 12th of January, followed by yesterday's event. Yesterday, we had with us our keynote speakers, Gary Stewart, CEO and founder of Founder Tribes, inaugural lecturer of entrepreneurship at Yale University, UK. And he spoke on the topic Beyond Silicon Social Impact from 7 to 8 p.m. And this session was followed by another enlightening session by Dr. Amrit Lal Bharadwaj. professor at Cardiff Business School, UK from 8 to 9 p.m. And we are quite happy to let you know that Dr. Hisrich is here with us. So can all of us welcome him once?
Hey, Bob.
Welcome to you, sir.
Hey, Bob, it's Michael Goldberg. I warmed up the audience for you. You're on mute. You're on mute, Bob.
Sir, you can unmute yourself.
I am.
Oh, there you are.
Yep. Well, thank you very much for doing that, Michael. We should get together sometime.
I know, it's so funny. I was just saying to these guys, it takes two friends sitting in the same city, but we have to meet up on a Zoom in India.
That, you know, everything happens, and that's what's so fun about it. But I'm still in Phoenix, Arizona. I'm coming. My flight got canceled, and so we have a foot of snow out where I live. And
well, it's funny. I just showed Bob. I just showed these guys. This is what you're coming back to.
Yes, I know.
Well, it's great to see you. Enjoy the session. These guys are, for 550 participants, they're very interactive. So
these are only in Zoom. Our major audience is on Facebook. We are live,
okay.
sir.
Okay.
So this is the Zoom capacity we host, and rest of our majority of the crowd is watching us live on Facebook.
Oh, good. Well, it's funny. Hey, Bob, I even teed up a little bit about Jumpstart in my presentation. So there's a nice arc between you and your impact on entrepreneurship at Case Western Reserve in Northeast Ohio. So I'm throwing the cricket ball to you.
Oh, well, thank you so much. I appreciate that. And I'm glad Jumpstart did so well. When we started it, I just knew it was right for the city and the area. So I was very happy that we got it started, and then it got even bigger and better.
Absolutely. All right. I will say goodbye. Good luck getting back here, and look forward to seeing you, Bob.
Thank you, Mr. Michael, so much.
Thanks, everybody. See ya.
Yeah.
Thank you, sir.
We welcome you, Dr. Robert Hisrich. We welcome you.
Well, thank you very much. I appreciate that. And I look forward to being a part of the summit.
Sure, so we just start to interrupt you, sir. We just start in a few minutes. And I also thank Mr. Aditya Prasad is here for coordinating and giving us the opportunity so that we could listen to your session today.
Thank you, Dr. Varsha. And welcome and Happy New Year, Dr. Hisrich.
Well, thank you. Same to you. And I look forward to participating and sometime us having a chance to meet.
Thank you.
Looking forward, sir.
Thank you, Varsha.
Dear participants, now carrying the same intellectual vibe forward from Goldberg sir's session, I would like to invite Professor Vaishakhi Devnath to introduce our next speaker of the session. Over to Professor Vaishakhi.
Thank you, Dr. Shiva. And before I take this opportunity to introduce our renowned speaker for the session, here I refer to a quote by Germany Kent that says, "Let your light shine as an inspiration to humanity and be the reason someone believes in the goodness of people." And this quote aptly applies to our esteemed speaker of the session, Dr. Robert D. Hisrich. Dr. Hisrich is the world-renowned expert and author on entrepreneurship. He himself is a global entrepreneur who has been involved in the founding of more than a dozen companies, including H&B Associates, a marketing and management consulting firm. He has authored 34 books, including Marketing for Entrepreneurs and SMEs, A Global Perspective, 2014, Managing Innovation and Entrepreneurship, 2014, Entrepreneurship, Starting, Developing and Managing a New Enterprise, 2013, translated into 13 languages, Governpreneurship, Establishing a Thriving Entrepreneurial Spirit in Government, 2013, Corporate Entrepreneurship, technology entrepreneurship, creating, capturing, and protecting value. International entrepreneurship, starting, developing, and managing a global venture. The 13 biggest mistakes that derail small businesses and how to avoid them, and the women entrepreneur, to name a few. Dr. Hisrich has written over 350 articles on entrepreneurship, international business management, and venture capital, which have appeared in such journals as the Academy of Management Review, California Management Review, Columbia Journal of World Business, Journal of Business Venturing, Sloan Management Review, and Small Business Economics. He has served on the editorial boards of the Journal of Business Venturing, Entrepreneurship Theory and Practice, Journal of Small Business Management, and Journal of International Business and Entrepreneurship. He has instituted academic and training programs such as the University Industry Training Program in Hungary, a high school teachers entrepreneurship training program in Russia, an Institute of International Entrepreneurship and Management in Russia, and an entrepreneurship center in Ukraine. Not only highly respected and sought after in the academic sector, Dr. Hisrich's expertise has been tapped by top corporations, including BP Petroleum, Citicorp, Conoco, Alcoa, Westinghouse, and Corning Glass. And here, we extend a warm welcome to sir to deliver your talk. Over to you, sir.
Thank you very much. I need to get to my slides before we get started. And I don't see where with this, where I can do that. Oh, wait, here it is. Okay, but now let me see, I need to do. Share screen. There. All right, so let me move up. Great. Well, thank you very much for such a lovely introduction. It is really a pleasure to be here. I've always enjoyed my time over the past decades of working with academics and administrators and students, as well as managers and business people in India. It's just been a thrill. The excitement they bring to the table, the knowledge and capabilities are really quite nice. So this is just really fun for me to be a part of this entrepreneurship seminar and summit. And I want to particularly thank Jain University for inviting me, and Dr. Sanraj Rochan, Dr. Raj Singh, Dr. Dinesh Nikant, and Dr. Varsha Agarwal for having me here. It's a pleasure to be here, and I look forward to having time with each of you on one of my favorite topics, and that is entrepreneurship beyond borders, successfully dealing with people who are different from you. My experience in this has been extensive, and I look forward to sharing some ideas with you and then answering any questions that you want. I have this session in three basic parts. First, I want to talk about why why entrepreneurs are easily doing international business, and because they're more similar than different. Secondly, I want to talk about the infrastructure that makes doing business differently. And finally, I want to talk about the future trends for global entrepreneurs and some of the things you have to look out for in the future versus what we experienced previously. And the future is very, very bright, let me say that. And so I hope each and every one of you experience the same excitement and success in doing business outside the borders that I have from the US. So let's get started with the characteristics of global entrepreneurs. As I said, they're more similar than different. And how are they similar? Well, let's look at some of the factors that make them similar. One is their motivation. And if you ask any venture capitalist, or as Michael Goldberg said in the previous session, the Jumpstart Fund, which I created while I was a professor at Case Western University, where he is now, the characteristics are the same. Regardless of whether you start a business in India or Slovakia or Russia or the United States, you have three basic motivations, and they tend to be in this order. So when a person walks into my office and I ask them, well, why do you want to be an entrepreneur? I listen to see if these are some of the reasons they want to. And number one is they really want independence. One of the things I like about my career is that I'm able to do my life in three separate sectors. One, teaching and giving seminars all over the world, which I love. Two, writing. And as said, I have quite a bit of books and articles that I've written, and many of which, as a matter of fact, have been translated into many languages. And three, I get to start my own companies and or consult for other companies. So I really have independence. And it's one of the things I would doubt if I could ever go back to work full-time for a corporation. I had in my career Procter & Gamble and Ford, and I was managers for both. Great experiences, good companies. But now I really like the independence I have of doing three different things. They have a passion for the idea. And once you have the idea that you're going to work hard for, I can guarantee you, you will be passionate about it. I'll never forget the first company I started. We were in the pallet business, plastic molded wooden pallets. And this was going to replace wood. And so I really got passionate about pallets. And that's hard to do and hard to believe, I'm sure, for some of you. But you just love the idea because you have yourself in the company. And remember, the reason you created a company was to create value. And everything you do when you're an entrepreneur is for creating value in your company. And finally, there's the whole thing of money and fulfillment of goals. And so we don't use money as the objective to do a business, but we have money as the counter of how successful we are. And yet when you do a nonprofit, which I've been involved in too, that's a different thing. You're fulfilling the goal of the nonprofit. So it's something that I think is very important to understand. These are the motivations you have, and in that order. Second characteristic that's very similar, regardless of what country you're from, is that you're ethical and trustworthy. I was doing a television series for here in the United States several years ago, and I asked the CEO of Jameson Inns. This was a chain that had about somewhere around 120 properties throughout the East Coast of the United States. And I asked Tom, I said, what do you look for in a board of directors? Because he was looking for some board members and to help his company grow even more. And he said, I look for three characteristics. I look for creativity. I look for their ethics, and I want to make sure that I can trust them. And I thought, well, that is an incredible summation. It had nothing to do with business skills. It had nothing to do with business knowledge, but it had to do with personal characteristics of the people that he wanted to surround himself with as he grew Jameson Inns to even a stronger base of inns or hotels throughout the United States. Number three, that's very similar among entrepreneurs, is the money and the fulfillment of goals. So we really are goal driven. And you want to remember, once you start a company, your whole life is based on how can I create a company that has more and more value? Because that's what your shareholders look for. That's what your investors look for. That's what your suppliers look for. And even the people that purchase your products want your business to thrive and continually succeed, so they continually have your products available for them. The next one is the visionary and flexible, and you have to have a vision. When someone walks into my office today and says, I want to be an entrepreneur, the first question I ask is, what's your vision for your company? And they should be able to sit there and tell me exactly what they want to do with their company, what markets they want to reach, how they want to reach those markets, who is their target market, and equally important at that time, who is their competition? I always worry about when people think they have the one and only idea that fulfills a need. That just doesn't happen very often. If you think about it, when you come up with your idea, you are replacing an idea that is presently filling the need that you are doing now. And so you want to look at the competition in a very broad way. And one of my people that I've done seminars with and respect has written several books on the topic. And you want to remember, competition is a key to success, because you want to look at the competition and say to yourself, what 3 to 5 things make me unique and different? Unique and different. That's what's important. And I call these, and you can look at it and see it in the 4th chapter of my book, unique selling propositions. You have to have at least 3 to 5 things that makes you unique and different from other services and or products on the market. Think about it. Why would I switch to something that was basically the same? And so you want to remember, you have to have that uniqueness about your product. So that means that you have to be visionary and flexible. I remember when we started my first company, as I said, the plastic molded modular cup pallets. And pallets is the thing that you send things, ship things on, or you're producing on an assembly line fashion. And for a while, we could not get people to understand that this plastic molded pallet was as strong as, was easier to use than, and everything else than wood, because people automatically think pallets are made of wood. And so we had to change. We had to be flexible. So we changed, and for several years, we produced wooden pallets, satisfying the market, showing that we could do it, showing that a small startup company could compete with larger companies. And then we switched over slowly to plastic molded pallets and did very, very well. So you have to have the vision, and yet once you have your vision, you have to be flexible enough to understand, how do I switch this vision to something else that keeps creating value in my company. The next one is encourages teamwork. And this is one of the key things. You can't do it alone. You have to be able to count on people who, as Tom Kitchen said, are ethical and trustworthy and creative, and sometimes go with one of their creative ideas, because this teamwork is what makes your venture strong. You just never have 2 things as you start as an entrepreneur. You never have enough time, and you never have enough money. So one of the features of having helping you with the time factor is that you have a team that's very competent and you can trust and you can count on, that have the same principles you do in terms of creating value in the company, and that helps your company succeed. The next one is persists and able to live with failure. And this is really a hard one. You want to remember that, as we had with the pallet company and several other companies I've had, for a while, the road gets very, very, very hard, because you are, first of all, in a position where most of the time you're not positively cash flow. Want to remember, as you start your company, you go down the curve first and not up the curve, and you are actually losing money. You're losing money. And what you have to do is what we call stop the bleeding. Because every time you're losing money, that means money has to come into the company from outside the firm. That means it's either in one of 2 forms, isn't it? Debt, which means I borrow money, or equity, which means I sell ownership to other people. And so you really want to minimize the amount of capital that has to come into your company in the early stages. Remember, the more value you create in your company, the less the capital costs. So that means in the early stages of your venture, where you need the money the most, you're paying the highest price for it, whether it be more interest rates in terms of debt, or more equity loss in terms of the company's capital. And so what you have to do is you have to continue to persist, even though everything looks bad. And so you're going down the curve in terms of the entrepreneurship. And then you hit this magic moment. And to me, this is the greatest moment ever. You positively cash flow. Now, remember from finance what that means. That means that revenue is greater than costs for the first time in your company. And this is the time you celebrate. Now, you haven't made a profit yet, but you actually have stopped the bleeding or stopped the loss of cash. So it's a great time. And at that time, the money is made internally in the company, and you don't have to have external finance. So you positively cash flow, and then you go up the curve, and then you finally make a profit. And then what happens, and you always have this, is you have an acceleration. So this is another tough time to manage. Remember, for a long time, you are good at stopping the losses occurring, and you're creating value in your company. You're creating a customer base. You're getting some brand loyalty. And then you start accelerating, and that's what we call the J-curve effect. And the J-curve effect. Now, when you're going out and raising capital, everyone's looking for the J-curve effect. And that tends to happen once you launch the venture in terms of a product on the marketplace. That tends to occur in somewhere between up to the first 7 years, where you accelerate your growth. The more technology is behind your company and the more complicated it is, the longer it takes before you start accelerating the growth. So, and that's where marketing comes in to help that acceleration process. So you J-curve effect, and then you're when the venture comes to that place, you then have to decide what you want to do. So that's what you have, this persistence, and knowing that you can fail. Silicon Valley, which is a hot fire, as most of you know, I'm sure, is one of the hot spots of venture capital and technology in the United States. I was on the other side. I was at MIT, and at that time, Silicon Valley wasn't very much. But now Silicon Valley really has outpaced Route 128. And some people, venture capitalists, say, you're really not an entrepreneur till you failed. Well, I can't agree with that. I have not failed, and I've started several companies that have been very successful. And so but anyway, they really understand this failure. And that's one of the virtues of the United States, why it's a lot of people like to be in the United States. Number one, it's easy to form a business. You know, in the United States, you can form a business in a state by paying whatever fee that is, and it's very low, somewhere around $100 up to $300, depending on the state. And it's very easier to finance a business because we have a lot of capital. The US is very good at managing capital, and India is very good as well. And number three, we have the opportunity to understand that we can disseminate this capital in a lot of different ways. So that's a very important thing, persistence, and understand you may fail. The fourth one, and the second to the last, is calculated risk taker. You know, people say, are you a real risk taker? No, I'm not. Gamblers and people who do that are really risk takers. We are calculated risk takers in the sense that we look at the pros and cons of starting a business. We look at what's the probability of being successful, and then we take obviously risks, but they're calculated risks in terms of starting a venture. And you want to do as much homework as you can before you start so that you feel very comfortable that you have a high probability of being success. And then once you start, you need to persist and go again and again and again against any of the obstacles that you'll confront. And finally, I think it's as good as a characteristic as any is you build strong bonding relationships. I want to tell you, one of the hardest things I ever have, and I build companies to sell them, is when it's time to sell a company. Now, it's hard to gauge because you never know if it's going to continue the growth rate, but I have my own reasons for why I want to sell, and the people I've created with have ownership positions and they want to sell. And one of the things that always bothers me when I sell a company is what's going to happen to my employees, because they have become a part of me. I'll never forget a company called Zeta Technology we formed. This was in the data technology space. We're doing very, very well. And I was on the board and several years chairman of the board. And I would always go to the meeting of our board meetings, which we have here in the United States at least 4 times a year. And I'd go early and I would want to talk to Mary. Mary was the receptionist for the company, but Mary really understood the company. She knew all the things that were going on. She knew the people. And I just took Mary and had a cup of coffee. We got someone to fill in for her and just ask her, how's things going, Mary? How's the company going? And it's amazing the insights you get from here, the person who is not a manager, barely college educated, and yet she really knew the company. And we created a bonding relationship that still lasted after the company was sold. And in fact, it was sold to a company from India who wanted to enter the US market. And you remember, for big corporations, this is important because it's easier to buy a company than to create a company that's going to compete with one that's already established. So if you have the capital, that's how you enter a new foreign market. You purchase a company and then use that as leverage to bring your technology, your products in with that company's name. So those are the characteristics, and those are similar no matter whether you start a company in India, you start a company, my last one's in Slovakia, you start a company in Russia, you start a company in China, or you start a company in the United States. And so because of those similarities, that makes it easier for entrepreneurs to start a company in a foreign country than big businesses. Big businesses, such as, let's say, the 2 I work for, Ford and Procter & Gamble, they, of course, are under the more scrutiny of what? The government of that country you're entering. But smaller companies are not quite as important to these countries as the bigger ones. And so if we find the right partner, or if we find the right entrepreneur we can team up with, or if we find the right connections, then we have a much easier time entering a company. So that's the characteristics. Well, what about the infrastructure? Because if you look at it, there's 3 things you need to start a company. What do you need? You need the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur has the idea. Oftentimes, the entrepreneur is not very good at running a company. So then you need the inventor who has the idea, and sometimes inventors can't run the company. You have the entrepreneur, and the entrepreneur can run the company. And then you have the financer. And that this can be in 3 different people, 2 different people, or 1 person. So if you have the money, you have the idea, and you can run the company, you have the capabilities to do that, then it's just 1 person, and that conflict doesn't happen as much. Otherwise, you have the potential for conflict between those. And on top of that, you're forming that company in a certain environment or in a certain infrastructure. And these infrastructures are what makes it so much different in terms of forming that company. And because they vary by country, and some of them are easier to handle than others. So let's look at the various infrastructures that we have to deal with. First of all, there's the rules and regulations. And this has to be. So you know that you have to understand the rules and regulations of the company. and that's of the environment that you're going to go into. And so you need to have someone on your staff or someone who is very familiar with the company, with the country. Now, my personal feeling is you'll never, ever understand a country totally. You know, if I come and live in India and start a company in India, I will never understand India the way you all do. That's your home country. You grew up in it. You understand the rules and regulations. You understand the culture. I'll never have that total understanding. So to me, it's very, very important to have someone on your management team, if not at some level, that really understands the country and its rules and regulations, because that you have to abide by those, and you want to abide by those. Remember, you're in their country, not yours. And so their country is what's important for you in terms of the environment that you're going into. Number two is the politics. And I'm not a political person and never will be in politics per se as a profession, but the politics play a very interesting situation for yourself. And so you need to have someone on your team, again, that understands those, particularly when the politics are very volatile. Right now, the politics everywhere are more volatile than usual. COVID has really transformed everything in terms of that. And so it's probably even more important today to understand the politics of a country that you're going into than ever before. Number three is the state of the economy of the country. So we need to understand what that state is and where they are on the economic state curves that are there, and how we have to operate in that particular fashion in terms of that. So those are the real things that make up this infrastructure that makes doing business in one country so different than the other. I go to Austria quite a bit because I teach at the Vienna School of Economics every year. I haven't been out of the country for the last 18 months. I'm really ready to go because I love being outside the United States. I always love coming back to the United States, there's no question about it, but I like the opportunity to experience new cultures, meet new people, and see new ways of doing things. So in Austria, let's compare Austria and the United States. In the United States, you can farm a business, as I said, online, paying the fee by credit card, and you can register a business depending on the state you're registering in. That's the fee. It may be up to $300, $400. And you can charge it. Now remember, if you charge it, what happens? If you don't pay that credit card bill, then the bank has to pay it. So you really can start a business very, very easily in the US. And that's why we farm so many companies. What about Austria? Austria, you have to go to 7 governmental agencies. You have to have so much euro in the bank, and you have to pay a significant fee that varies somewhere around 1,000 euro. Now look at the difference. And you say, why does the US farm so many companies? It's easy. Plus, we have an environment that encourages that. We have an environment that allows failure. And sometimes that environment has more companies being created than probably should be. And so that means we have to have, if you create more companies, you have to have a what? A high failure rate. So that comes with having that particular asset. So what are best practices to be successful in doing this? Well, number one is understanding the culture of the country. Let's take my last venture. My last venture is Spectre Sports. It's headquartered in Slovakia. Why Slovakia? Because 2 of my students that I taught several years before at the Vienna School of Economics were from Slovakia. And so we created a sports company that basically is going to revolutionize, we hope anyway, the how hockey sticks are treated. If you ever watched ice hockey, you'll see that hockey, the sticks are always taped. Why are they taped? Because wood of the stick versus the puck decreases the accuracy. So by having the tip, the stake, the base of the hockey stick taped, that when it hits the puck, you have more accuracy. Well, we came up with a solution that you could put on the hockey stick that not only increases the accuracy by somewhere around 18% over taping, but also you can advertise. I thought, boy, this has a real potential. So where would we want to go for this? Well, your first thought is you want to go where the market is big, and I totally agree. So which countries have the biggest hockey events in hockey? Canada, Russia, and the United States. But think about this small company, and I've learned very carefully after many years in this thing, you want to stay as close to your parent company as you can to get started. So we got started in Europe. Now Europe, the EU, doesn't play nearly as much hockey and doesn't have nearly as much fan base as the three countries I just mentioned. So we're in Slovakia, and these two gentlemen, my ex-students, came to me, we met, and they said, we really want to form this company. We want you to be a part of it, a member of the board and chairman of the board. And we talked about it for about a day when I was overseas. And then we formed the company, and Spectre Sports is in business. So they really understand the culture of Europe far more than I ever will. I go there often, I go there regularly, but I don't live there. I'm not a part of the EU. So that was important. I think we're going to be successful. We'll see. If you start seeing hockey sticks with advertising on them, you'll know, hopefully it'll be from our company, Spectre Sports. Number two, do not underestimate the knowledge and the talent of the people in the country. They are extremely bright. I mean, particularly I deal with India managers, and they are really bright. They're dedicated, they're smart, they know how to do things. And I learned that lesson very well with a PhD student of mine, again, at Case Western Reserve University. And the PhD student wasn't one of the stellar, top of the PhD students I've ever been involved with, but he was really solid. And so when he went back to China after getting his PhD, he got involved with the economic unit that advises the premier and was very, very successful. So here a person who was not as highly talented as others in the PhD program, went back to China and was extremely successful and helped me very well in doing business in China and introducing me to some very high government officials. So you remember, there's people that are just really smart in these countries, and you want to take advantage of that intelligence, take advantage of those contacts so that you can create a valuable company beyond your border. Number three is we have someone with you who knows the language of the country. Now, I'm fairly good in German, and so that part is fine with me. But I was in Russia once, my first experience in Russia, and I created a business school in Leningrad. Now, Leningrad is a high-tech part of Russia. It's when you get into Moscow, it's in District 12, which is outside of Moscow quite a bit. And I understood right away that I really didn't understand some of the things that were happening in terms of the Ministry of Education in Russia. And so it was very important to have someone that not only knew that, but could help me in the translation, because I know very few words in Russia, all the important ones like how to order food and where's the bus and those kinds of things. and where's the transportation, but not the intricacies of business. And so all the discussions on this were always in the language of Russia, of course, because it's their country. So I had a translator, but the translator was supplied by the Russian government. Now this I understood very quickly that this never works. You need to hire your own translator, someone that you are paying, that you can count on to translate accurately and really get a sense of what's going on in this conversation. So remember, always have someone that has knowledge and really has understood what's going on in terms of that. Deal with the main issues right away. So let's just continue this whole story about setting up the first 4-year business school ever in Russia, the Zelenograd Business School. So one of the things that the Ministry of Industry was interested in having is a lot more computers, not for the students, not for education, but for themselves. And so every time they were talking about it, because I had supporters from Italy, I had supporters from Canada, I had supporters from the United States government, and these other two were governmental supporters as well, the other 3 countries, very interested, started this business school. And so they were more interested in other things other than starting a business school. And number 2, I knew that I had to make sure that the degree we granted was approved by the ministry. Otherwise, the degree wouldn't mean much. So these were the 2 sticking points of the negotiation. I remember sitting in these old, back then they had curtained rooms that were dark. There was a lot of smoking going on. Thank goodness I don't smoke, but my eyes were burning, and it was about 6 or 7 hours. Remember the persistence we talked about? This was persistence. So finally I said, listen, here's the deal. You want this business school, you want the money to have first-class business education in your country. So you have to, I will not buy computers for the government, and I want to make sure this degree is recognized as a valid degree by the ministry, because all the other degrees were 5-year degrees. And so without that, the deal's off. And so we focused on those 2 things. They agreed to both, and the Zelenograd Business School was formed. We charged a pretty high tuition at that time, and everybody said, nobody's going to pay that tuition. I said, they're going to pay the tuition. Remember, price is really a tough variable. And one of the hardest things you'll find when it comes to starting your company is pricing. And I said, yes, they will, because they're not only going to get the business degree and designed based on US curriculum, but they're also going to get training in English, because the first 2 years were taught in Russian, the second 2 years were taught in English. So I hired the best English teachers possible in that country, so that these students obviously not only came out knowing business, but they came out knowing English. And so we walked through this thing. Zelenograd Business School started, and we had more applications than we could handle. So we even had a selective process. It's still going today. So you see, that occurred a lot because the main issues were dealt with. The school was able to start, and the students, all the students every year, particularly in the first years, easily found jobs because the language of business was slowly switching to English. It's still mainly Russian, but there's a lot of English done in the businesses, and they had that talent. You negotiate everything possible, particularly when there's very little code of business laws, practices, and regulations. Before the wall, in 84, I was living in Hungary to start the International Management Center. And this was the first center in controlled economies to teach Western business techniques. So we were starting in Hungary, and it was really a hard thing to start. It was a graduate school, not undergraduate. And Hungary had never thought about MBAs and that kind of thing. And so again, it was the same kind of thing in terms of really negotiating exactly what it was. And we wanted to be, because of the funding and everything else, a nonprofit. Nonprofit means what? You don't pay taxes. And so there was no laws at that time, believe it or not, in Hungary for nonprofits, curatorium. And so I had to work to create laws that allowed us to operate in the country, the INMC, and be a part of Hungary, the International Management Center outside of Budapest, and exist as a nonprofit. So there's a lot of things you go through in terms of being able to create your company that you don't expect. And believe me, the basic rule I have is everything you think won't happen will happen. So be prepared. And that's why this persistence is so important. And we finally got that passed, the laws, the curatorium. So then we created the International Management Center outside of Budapest, and it's still running very, very successfully. The second to the last is find yourself a good partner. I think that's one of the keys to me of being successful and going global. A good partner. And what's a good partner going to have? Creativity, understanding of the culture, ethical, and trustworthy, right? One of the best partners I ever had was Tatiana. Tatiana was a really smart woman in Russia, very smart. And she understood Russian politics, she understood Russian culture, and she really understood the business. And so we were importing wine from Hungary. And you know, the Tokai wine, which is Hungary's specialty, was a wine that already was distributed nationwide and across the world. But there were other wines from other parts of Hungary that weren't quite as popular in other regions of the country. And when the wall came down, and remember this happens when politics go crazy, the distribution system stops. Remember that, the distribution system stops. And that happened in the case of wines. So down near Miskolc, which is a city in Hungary, is where all the wines, a lot of the good wines of Hungary are made. And so we came in and decided to create wines for Russia. And the wines were a variety, not only Tokai, but some of the other wines. And I'll never forget, we went into Russia, and one of the things that everybody thought was, oh, we don't have to pay for a while. And so we hired some representatives of the company, and I went on some calls in the first year, and one store owner said, oh, well, yes, I'll take 3 cases and I'll pay you later. And we had the rule, cash on cash. And that's a beautiful business whenever you can do that. That means what happens? You're paid as the goods are there, not when they're sold, but when they receive them. And so, in fact, we had pre-payments before we even shipped the goods in there for that particular store manager. And so we could use that money to grow. So our growth on this D&H Associates was just unbelievable. And finally, if you're going to invest over a period of time, but take control immediately. One thing I worry about is not taught very well in the business schools, even in the United States, is the difference between control and investment. They're two different things. In other words, I can have control of a company, or I can manage a company. And so what we had in terms of this is we got investors very slowly. And one of the companies that was extremely successful was the Boston Lens. And the Boston Lens came out of when I was at MIT, and Lou Major, who was a brilliant scientist, had created the first ever gas permeable hard contact lens. Now, today, you don't even think about hard contact lenses because we evolved then and the world evolved into soft lenses. But pre-soft lenses, the only thing open besides glasses like I have on or what were hard contact lenses. And a lot of people couldn't wear them. Why couldn't they wear them? Because the eye couldn't breathe. And so gas perms, which Lou Major created and had 3 very, very strong patents, allowed the eye to breathe. And I'll never forget, he walks into my office and says, I want to start a company with you. And I said, well, why with me? And he said, I heard you talk, I've checked you out, did the reference checks and everything else, which you want to do very carefully. And he said, and I know you're ethical, I know you're trustworthy, and I know you know what you're doing, more importantly. So we formed Polymer Technology. But what we did is, in terms of that, is we just slowly got investments from basically the medical community over time. So we did what we call stage financing. But we controlled the company and others invested in the company. See the difference? And that's important to understand. And then when we took the Boston Lens into Europe, obviously, if you look at Europe, one of the countries that has some of the finest healthcare in the world is Germany. So we went and invested in a small distributor company and then slowly and controlled it, but slowly purchased the whole company over time. So everything is time driven. And those are some principles I hope you follow and the examples that you'll remember so that you can tackle an infrastructure that's different than the one you're used to and tackle it very successfully. Now let's conclude with the last thing, which is the future and what's going to happen. Remember, I started off this presentation and I said, the future is extremely bright. Global business is going to significantly increase, and there's a lot of factors that have caused that. And one of the biggest factors that has helped this increase in global business is the internet and doing business online. So in a lot of cases, depending on the nature of your product or service that you're going to create, you may never, ever have a location in a country you're selling to. And so we have a lot of opportunities today. And the second thing that we have today is there's more money available than ever in the history of the world. There is a lot of money out there that is waiting for the idea that'll appeal to them to invest. So what are some other things that are going to happen even more so in the future? One, we have more thoughtful buyer behavior. People are much more cautious today than ever before. I notice they have a lot more information, they're a lot more intelligent, so their buyer behavior and their actions in terms of purchasing your product or service is much more factual based than ever before. And the information is available. The information is available. Now, what does that mean for us as business people? That means our entrepreneurs, more importantly. We need to be more agile. That means we need to understand that we may have to change things very, very quickly. And if you notice the change in the messages that come across in terms of the digital media and the other media, they're very different because they reflect the more thoughtfulness of the buyer and they reflect the conditions of this time. So you got to be more agile today than ever before. You had to switch before, you had to be open to change before, but nothing like today and nothing like in the future. Number three, you want to remember the relationship between arts and entrepreneurship. You know, as I look at the various commercials that come out, I look at how our company in Slovakia is run and another company here in the US. We just are much more creative than we ever were. And that's part of art. So you want to be mindful of this. You're creative in your advertisement, you're creative in your decor of your company, you're creative in your relationships. And so you want to remember that arts is always here, and it now becomes even more prevalent and important for entrepreneurship. And you'll actually be seeing more and more programs in the arts and entrepreneurship, just as this title reflects. There's 3 of those programs now in the United States, and I think there's going to be an increasing number in the future. Fourth thing is decentralized finance, or DeFi. Today, there's been a lot of different ways to finance your company. And as I said, there's a lot of money available. So you're going to see different things that banks are going to do with the cryptocurrency and everything else. It's going to be a lot different in financing than I was used to when I formed Polymer Technology, or even formed the hockey company in Slovakia, Spectre Sports. So keep abreast of what's happening in finance. To me, the most 2 important things that you need to have, you understand marketing and how to make your product available in the right way to the right target market in the country, but you then need to know how to get your capital. And that's changing all the time and getting much different than it was even 3 years ago. Number 4 or 5 is more coaching and mentoring your employees. You know, I've noticed a lot is, you know, if you just drive around in any city in the United States, you'll see a lot of signs, help wanted. And you'll see the salaries of lower level jobs have been increasing and increasing and increasing at a significant rate here, at least in the United States. And I haven't been outside the country for a year and a half, but I'm sure the same thing is happening, at least in the EU and I'm sure in India as well. So that means it's more important to keep your present employees, even more so than ever before. And once you have trained an employee, it's very difficult to replace them with the same kind of skill level. So you're going to need to do more coaching and mentoring than I've ever did with my employees. And I always built employees to create strong bonding relationships, as I explained before. There's going to be, and I see a lot of you are women in the audience, there's going to be more women entrepreneurs, more and more and more. About 6 years ago, the number of women forming businesses in the US was higher than the number of men. And that percentage has increased each year. So in other words, that's going to happen all over the world. We see that women in general have more talent, particularly in web-based businesses. They have more talent in what we call women-dominated industries. And so I see that tendency to happen all over, that we'll have more women entrepreneurs. We're definitely going to have more e-commerce. As you know, that's the biggest set of where business occurs in almost every country in the world. And so we're going to have, that's going to continue. That's not going to decrease. We're going to have an increasing use of artificial intelligence. And so we see that artificial intelligence is going to take care of not only internal things within the company in terms of its management and reporting, but also in determining the market and how to reach that market effectively. We have to have more flexibility. This goes along with the agility. So we got to be flexible and move very, very quickly, or we're going to be out of business. So you're going to have to be more flexible and know that your vision may change, the way you do things may change, and you have to adapt that very fast. There's going to be incredibly more new ideas, opportunities, and change. The world is changing at such a pace, and there's studies done of how fast it is now versus other times. And that's not that the increase in change is not going to stop. And your country and all of you from the India culture, you're used to that. You're good at that, so that will be no problem. And then there's going to be more and more and more global entrepreneurs. There's no question. I watch what happens in terms of international entrepreneurship being taught in schools all over the world. I have a book in the field, so I watch it even more carefully. It's in its 3rd edition now. And people are really interested in going beyond their own borders. And in some countries, you can only grow so big. Not because there's any law against growing any bigger, but the market is just saturated. So how can I continue to increase my growth and therefore increase my value? I can do that by going outside my borders. And each and every one of you, I hope, has that opportunity to do business beyond your border, beyond the border of India, because it's something that you'll never forget. It's something that experience-wise you'll love. And to me, it's so fun to go into different countries, even if I'm not going to do business, but just getting to meet people, getting to know a little bit about the culture, getting in many cases to give a seminar like this and be a part of a marvelous summit that they've done with Jane University. And you're very fortunate to have that kind of opportunity to attend a summit like this, as well as the opportunity to start your own business. So if I can be of any help to you, let me know. And I even though I travel a lot, and even though I teach here in the US and in Europe regularly, I'll be more than happy to do that. So I guess it's time for they said they wanted to have some time for questions. So I'm willing to take any questions you might have.
Yes, sir. Surely, sir. We have so many questions for you, sir.
Okay.
So how much our time permits we'll take. So first of all, let me thank you, sir, for this wonderful session. And we'll take some questions now. Yeah. So our first question comes from a participant, Mr. Ali Abukar. The value addition expected from an entrepreneur?
I'm sorry, would you repeat the question one more time?
Yes, sir. What is the value addition from an entrepreneur?
What value does the entrepreneur give the company?
Yes, yes.
Sure. You want to remember, you have an idea, and then the market needs to get this idea. And so the entrepreneur provides the greatest value he or she can provide. How to take this idea to the market. And what we call it is opportunity analysis. And in my book, in chapter 4, and I teach this all the time in the classes I teach, is how do you identify an opportunity that you are passionate about and can take this idea to it. So you're extremely important. Otherwise, remember the 3 roles that have to be played. The inventor who comes up with the idea, or maybe you, but then the entrepreneur creates the business. And the business, without the business, the idea cannot ever have value. And then you have to have finances to do that, of course, and that's where the financier comes in. So you play a critical role in this. And that's why when we look at what is a primary reason venture capitalists or other investors put in money in a business, it's because they have an entrepreneur they believe in. As one venture capitalist told me, he said, I bet on the jockey, which is the entrepreneur, not on the horse, which is the idea.
Thank you so much, sir, for your inputs. I'll take the next question now, which is from Dr. Pradeep. He says that if a person who is successful entrepreneur locally, will he also be successful?
Yes, a great question, Doctor. I'll tell you, I think I had that question asked so many times. You're right on the money. Will you be successfully outside your own basis? That I don't know. I mean, it's still the same thing. every time I create a company, even though I've had success, and the success obviously gives me knowledge and capabilities and all that, I never know if the next company is going to be successful or not. Most entrepreneurs are what we call serial entrepreneurs, which I am. I start many different companies, some inside the US, created a company in Russia and China, Slovakia, never India yet, Hungary, etc. But you never know. It depends on when are you flexible, and you got to be more flexible outside your own country than you do in. Are you agile? Do you have the right team for that country? And the team becomes really important. So you can be very successful in your own country and not successful outside of it. And that depends on the individual himself and his talent or her talent, and the idea itself, and the selection of the market, of course. So I hope you are, but
Sure, sir.
you never know.
Sure, sir. So I'll take the next question now. It comes from Mary Jo's ma'am. She asked that it is really difficult to start a business in India and almost impossible to close down a business in India. And this is the kind of thought which is being thrown to aspiring entrepreneurs. Is it a truth or it's a myth?
Well, each country has its own laws and rules, and it's very different in forming a company in different countries. And so India may have laws that make it much more difficult to form a company, just like the difference, as I indicated to you, between Austria and the United States. Hopefully, the government will understand we should relax those laws to let more and more people start a company, since a lot of us want that independence that comes with being an entrepreneur. Closing down a business, I walked away from a couple of areas that were really interested in us coming into it to create a business, particularly when we had the Boston Lens and polymer and the Boston Lens and polymer technology. And I mainly didn't start it there because it was difficult to close a business down there. And so I think if that's the case for India, then you have one of two choices. You either have to decide, I'm going to fight that and I'm going to do it anyway, and I'll just live with that, and I won't have to close down because I'm going to be very successful. Or you have to work with others in terms of petitioning the government to help change the laws for that, because it's very important for it to be easy to enter and easy to exit. Otherwise, a lot of people won't come in. The government can attract other countries, other larger companies even into the country as well. So that makes it harder, but that doesn't mean you can't do it, because if you're smart, you're intelligent, and you can persist, you can still create a company in any environment you want to.
Sure, sir. I'll just take one last question, which has come from our live audience from Facebook for you. What are the real times for Indian entrepreneurship in global arena? It is asked by Chintamani Prasad. Should I repeat the question, sir?
Yes, I could use a repeat of that question.
Sure, sir. Sure, sir. I will do so. Real-time challenges for Indian entrepreneurs in global arena.
Well, I think one of the things for Indian entrepreneurs to go into the global arena, you're really good in certain areas. In fact, as good as any place in the world, in software and things of that nature. Everybody knows India has incredible success and intelligence in developing new products in that area. So, in other areas as well. So I think the thing you need to be very careful of doing is picking a country and going into your first international venture in a country you really feel comfortable in. And I think it's more important, particularly if you haven't had the opportunity to go out and be in a lot of different countries and understand the different environments. I think it's really important for you to choose a partner in that country that you trust, you get along with, has the same values as you have, and that can really help you be successful in that country, because it really is different. There's no question about it. Even though I had the opportunity to travel and do seminars all over the world, And so got to see different cultures in different countries, and at least was more of a global citizen than many people are. It still is very hard when it gets down to starting a company and living in it. When we took polymer technology, the Boston Lens, up to Canada, and Canada is very similar to the United States, it really has a lot of dissimilarities as well. And one of the things I learned very quickly was I needed to have someone on my staff in Canada that really understood the Canadian market and the Canadian distribution system. Remember, the polymer technology, the lens itself is not where we made the money, it's in the solutions. So we created the Boston Lens wetting and soaking solution and the Boston Lens cleaning solution. And we became the dominant solution seller in Canada and the dominant lens, contact lens in Canada, because I had someone who really understood the Canadian market. So get yourself a good partner, pick wisely where you go, pick a country that you feel comfortable with and like, and you have a higher probability of being successful.
Thank you so much, sir. Before we proceed with our formalities, we have a small video to you from our students. So we hope that you will like it.
Oh, should I take off my slide?
Nothing, sir. So just enjoy this video, which has been dedicated by students to you. Students, you can play now.
Thank you very much. That was wonderful. I hope I can get a copy of it. I don't know where you got some of that information. You people are more creative than I am, but boy, those pictures are real. And I remember every one of them brought back a memory that was really, really wonderful. And that's what makes it so important. So thank you very much for doing it.
Yeah. So let me just complete the formality of thanking you. So thank you so much, sir, for our participants down through your in-depth knowledge. And it's been a privilege to listen to a wonderful session. I'm sure all of our participants would have taken back a lot from your engaging discussion. You enlightened us with your profound thoughts and innovative ideas, bringing an innovative approach towards the concept of entrepreneurship. Our special thanks goes to our director, Dr. Dinesh Neelkant, our vice chancellor, Dr. Raj Singh, along with Mr. Aditya Prasad and Dr. Suchitra R. from Innovation Institute of Jain deemed to be University, who have been instrumental in making this session worthwhile. Thank you so much, sir.
Well, thank you for having me. I really enjoyed it. And I look forward to working with you more and being a part of the heritage there and the students and faculty.
Thank you so much, sir.
Thank you, Bob. Thank you, Dr. Esra. Thank you, Dr. Varsha.
Thank you. Over to Dr. Shiva.
Thank you so much, sir, for presiding over this evening and making it a grand success for all of us. This is a kind of once a lifetime moment for all of us, for all the participants who have joined us from a number of countries. So thank you once again for joining in. So as we have come to the end of today's session, I would like to extend my heartfelt gratitude to our esteemed speakers, Mr. Michael Goldberg and Dr. Robert D. Hisrich, for giving us enriching insights about the concept of entrepreneurship in current day business world. With trending techniques and practices to be adopted at various levels, I'm extremely thankful to our wonderful participants whose engagement and active participation fulfilled the purpose of today's session. I would also like to convey, yes.
Sorry to interrupt you, Dr. Shiva. We also have Professor Amrit Lal from Cardiff University, UK, who especially joined us today to listen to Dr. Robert Hisrich. So we thank him as well for his presence in this session.
Thank you so much, sir, for your presence over this evening. At the same time, we are also extremely thankful to our wonderful participants whose engagement and active participation fulfilled the purpose of today's session. I would also like to convey special thanks to our summit advisors, Dr. Rogers M. Smith, Christopher H. Brown Distinguished Professor at University of Pennsylvania, USA, Dr. John Lipinski, Professor and Co-Director of the Excel Center for Entrepreneurial Excellence, Indiana University of Pennsylvania, USA, and Mr. Manoranjan Sharma, Chief Economist, Infomerics Ratings, India, who have been instrumental in making this summit worthwhile. Thank you once again, everyone, for joining us. I request all of you to stay with us for all upcoming 4 days for lots more to explore and learn from our coming up eminent speakers. Tomorrow, we are going to walk you through the entrepreneurship initiatives taken by Jain Deemed to be University, starting at 6 p.m. with the following session by Dr. J. Rao, Professor at Webson College, USA, who will be conferring his views on the topic, Gorillas, Chimps, and Monkeys, Startups versus Scale-Up, at 7 p.m., which will be followed by Dr. Ellen R. Cohen, alumnus, Harvard Business School, and Professor, Babson College, USA, speaking on the topic, Entrepreneurship for All, what does it take and when is it appropriate? Post which we are going to have with us our most awaited speaker, Dr. Dinesh Neelkant, Dean, Faculty of Management and Director of Center for Management Studies, CMS Business School, School of Graduate Studies, School of Computer Science, IT and Admissions at Jain Deemed to be University. He will be delivering his talk on the topic, University and Entrepreneurship, from 8 to 9 p.m. Requesting all participants to stay tuned throughout, as it's mandatory to fill feedback form for all sessions to receive certificate. Tomorrow, we are going to begin with the session sharp at 6 p.m. Requesting all of you to log in 15 minutes prior to the session. Hope to see you all tomorrow at 5:45 p.m. IST. Have a great time. Thank you. Namaste to all.
Thank you so much, Amrit Lalji.
My pleasure. Thank you. It's been a pleasure being with you all.
Thank you so much, sir, for your presence, sir. Thank you, Aditya, sir.
Thank you all. Thank you very much.
Bye-bye.
Bye.